Hello and welcome. Here we are. It's time for Giant Bomb's After Hours coverage of E3 2016. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Hello. It's Tuesday. Night one of E3 is over. The press conferences are distant memories. They're in the books. They're gone. And now it's time to reflect upon everything that's happened. I'm joined by our first rack of guests from 8-4. We've got Mark McDonald, John Riccardi. How you doing?
Hey.
Good.
Welcome.
Good.
Welcome.
Thank
We got
you.
Brad Shoemaker down there with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you in here finally. Yeah, we've been trying for a good long time.
I watch all the time.
Yeah, you guys, it's another E3. It's
another E3.
You guys, did you come all the way?
Came
were
all
you
the
guys
way from
out in
Tokyo?
country for other stuff, or just coming out for E3 and going back?
John is sticking around and doing some
I got to
voice
stick
recording.
around and do some work right after this. But yeah, we're over here for E3.
Can we say what
primarily.
project that's on that you're doing?
I don't
it for?
know, so maybe not.
Okay, probably safer not to.
A cool
but
game, but I can't talk
A cool
about it
game.
yet. Yeah.
All right. I like cool
One that we're
games.
actually genuinely interested in.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 So, you guys have been around and in the video game business now for a very long time.
My 20th E3.
Yeah.
Nice. Me and you both.
Yeah.
I skipped those two rinky-dink ones where they went the one
Santa
went to Santa
Monica
Monica and
ones.
one went to a garage or something. I don't know. I
The
wasn't there,
garage
but-
year was fun.
I missed Robbie
missed
Drum's
it.
year, which is actually, I'm so happy I missed that because I got to experience it along with everybody else on NeoGAF.
As history was being made.
I honestly feel like that year was better experienced on the net rather than actually being here.
Was that the My Body Is Ready year?
That was, I think it was the My Body. It was the
think, yeah.
Cammy Dunaway,
Yes.
Robbie
Yeah.
Drums.
Oh, right,
It all
just
blurs
like,
together after a while.
Yeah.
It really does. Because there were a lot of years that I wasn't actually attending any of the press conferences, and I was back in the booth just doing stuff.
Right.
And then I started going for a while, and yeah, it's just at some point all of it has just become this blur.
I will say one of the things about the Sony press conference this year is I felt like it appreciably made a difference being in the room, whereas normally I feel like it's like watching a football game where it's like, this is probably better watching this at home.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. The big video
The
stage
orchestra
floor and the orchestra
And the
stuff.
video stage, which I don't even know how much of it you could see
A decent amount,
on the
but
stream.
I
but
feel like
it
a
was-
lot of the floor stuff was lost. Like there were the crash bit. They had
Right.
a high shot for that. 'Cause
Okay.
They want to get that and Hideo walking down.
The
That
Michael
was
Jackson
great. Yeah.
moonwalker,
Though he got
yeah,
ahead
yeah.
of the lights, man.
Right.
He needed to pace it a little bit.
Like that
was too
guy,
excited.
Yeah.
if he didn't have an ego before that,
Dude, yeah,
he's got,
I saw that.
How do you come down from that giant applause, people cheering, and then the stage lights up as you walk down it? It's like,
He's just like, I'm back.
I am a golden
I'm
guy.
the
I saw
only,
that. I
I'm
was-
the
I was
only
like-
non-Sony person in this press conference.
I was like, his ego is going to develop nuclear capability if he
Did you guys?
if this keeps going.
Have you guys talked much about that? The trailer
we
that
watched
they showed?
it. Yeah.
Right.
What did you think?
So I had two thoughts about it. Well, I had one thought, and then a friend had another thought that I'm going to just steal and say on here. So the one thought is that it's got to be so early.
I mean, he
early.
was just on his big engine tour,
Right.
And then an hour before that was on Keeley's thing saying like, I don't have
Right.
an engine yet, which
Yeah, I
maybe he
know.
was I think that maybe had someone
There was
imply
a
to me that
little
maybe
head
he was
fake.
lying to Keeley about that
Well,
stuff.
right.
but-
And then Keeley had him right afterwards too. So I think it was a little Jorgen, whatever, bandage face fun.
Right, yeah,
Jeff
yeah.
Keeley, Kojima combo.
Sure.
But and I should say, we have no special knowledge. We've done some stuff with them before when they were back in Konami, but I have no insight on this at all. But I was thinking back to, do you remember the first time they showed Metal Gear Solid 4, and they had that video where it was Snake, and it was really abstract, and it was just some
Yeah.
walls and him running around and kind of, it was just kind of more wanting to announce the thing, and it did kind of match the fidelity that the final game ended up looking like.
Right, but
So-
it wasn't really.
But it wasn't. It was we don't have anything, but we want to make an announcement, and so here's the thing. The other thought that kind of reinforces that one, that I was actually watching it with Ryan Payton, who used to work at Koji Pro, and so he also doesn't have any special insight except that he worked there for a while. But he pointed out, which I haven't read any of the online stuff. I don't know if this is already the stuff everybody's talking about, but so guy wakes up. He's had his baby ripped from him, and his baby is now dead. And it's okay, yeah, this is kind of just him about what's going on, and
Also, there are hands all over him.
There you go.
Everybody's
And like,
trying to get a piece.
right, exactly. So, and I don't know what those 4 or 5 like floating figures, what that means. Maybe that actually is part of the game. Maybe that all factors in. But he was handcuffed to something, and now it's broken.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
He's free, but at what cost? At what cost?
That was Solid Snake from all 5 different, the snake from all the 5 different Metal Gears up in the sky, but you'll never see them.
There was 5 of them.
There was.
It's true.
So, who knows? But
I didn't expect
With
there
that
to
in
be
mind,
anything
yeah, you start
there.
to wonder, like, is that representative of a game, or is that just his like mood piece about like,
Yeah.
hey, here's where my head's at with this stuff.
Right.
Obviously we are going to make a game with Norman Reedus one of these days,
Right,
but
right.
all this stuff.
here's the fidelity that we're going to do. Here's the facial whatever motion.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that stuff actually is part of that. But I mean, it did what it needed to do, and it got everybody talking about it already, and everybody's super excited. I do wonder, if that first Metal Gear trailer, it was a long time before that game came out. So I'm expecting it'll be the same. He says it's going to be a big AAA game. He's not going to do like a smaller thing.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. But it was-
2018. That's my guess.
You think?
Yeah.
That sounds early to me.
Yeah.
Well, it could
Okay.
be.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be.
I thought the
I'd
idea
say
was to not take
Q4
so much time, though.
2018.
That's at
He did-
earliest, I would say.
Well, I remember when this all happened and they started talking about him delivering a game, it was like, well, this is going to be a PlayStation 5 game. But now all of that's changed so much that, that the generation stuff doesn't really mean anything anymore.
And to your point about 2018, I mean, they are now using somebody else's engine, presumably.
Right.
They're
True.
using other people, so they don't have to build
Yeah.
everything from the ground up. They're going to keep their team small. Maybe that's maybe that's something new for him, is now that he's controlling the budget is him.
Right,
It
yeah.
really is just Kojima Productions. Maybe we'll see something
And you
different.
wonder, if they do end up needing some kind of assistance, or maybe they wouldn't have to like blow up their own team to some huge size. Maybe
Right.
at that point, Sony as the publisher goes like, hey, we know some guys that can work
Right,
on your
yeah.
game.
I was going to say, I'm wondering if they'll go
half
like
of Santa Monica starts working on it or something. Yeah.
or the Naughty Dog route where you have a lot of outsourcing. Like those guys are
Right.
amazing at outsourcing. You see the credits at the end are like a Chinese phone book because they're like taking every
Literally.
But you can't tell. Like I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
the fidelity is amazing. So
There are
who
no
cares,
seams there.
Yeah,
Wasn't Mark Cerny in the
exactly.
credits too?
Technical producer,
director
I
or
think,
something?
or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So.
And what do you think of the name? Death Stranded.
Yeah.
Stranding. Death Stranding. Sorry. Yes.
I've forgotten it. Like
It seemed
30
utterly
times.
like just incomprehensible or nonsensical to me. But somebody tweeted at me the Wikipedia page
Yeah.
for Stranding.
Stranding.
That
which
beached
is
whale
basically like
phenomenon.
a beach, whales beaching themselves. That kind of
okay,
thing.
yeah, it does make. I had heard that it made more sense when you heard the
Yeah,
definition of it,
yeah.
and
Oh,
I guess
really?
it does.
I
a
definitely
little
got
bit.
some transfarring vibes from that when I first heard it. I was like,
I think living in Japan.
nobody like
Yeah,
double checked this
living
or
in Japan, that
vetoed.
stuff just
Our first
rolls
guess
right off.
is
And you're like,
oh
yeah,
shit,
no, perfect.
they did the.
Or you just look at it and go like, oh, that's the name of like an energy drink or something.
Right.
Death Stranding. Like that's just.
Maybe he's too
I think it's
almighty
lemon
now, and there's
flavored,
no
right?
one to everyone's afraid to
Tommy
tell
Lee
him, "No, you
Jones,
should
Death
change that
Stranding.
name."
He's just his face on the vending machine.
But I mean, awesome that they did that and kept it, secret. Like Sony can actually keep secrets these days, which is impressive. Resident Evil fucking 7.
Yeah. Yeah, they
and,
seem to have
and
the
the whole
fewest
game
leaks.
playable in VR,
Yeah.
like that was also like
Yeah,
wow.
and a completely different look for that game.
So does that is it basically safe to assume that entire game is now in first person? Or
I think that's the case.
That,
Right?
That would
so.
be the implication, I think, and
Yeah.
that's that demo's out there. I know people
Right.
can download it and play it, but then even
Apparently
we
to-
saw the VR version being played, and
Right.
Yeah, and it's
it was a
definitely-
first-person game with a controller, and
Yeah.
it moved like a first-person game with a controller would. Like not a lot of view bob because it's VR.
Right.
You are the view bob.
right.
But
You are the
I mean,
Yeah.
VR aside, like they can't have missed the frenzy around PT.
Well,
like, there's,
and so,
there's
yeah.
appetite for that stuff.
I've heard, and I haven't played it. I'm dying to play it,
neither.
but I have heard that there are like PT like overtones to it.
they gave their demo like a separate name and everything. It's like Resident Evil 7, the dark something begins. Like they're
Right.
trying to brand it as a separate thing, the way
Right.
Final Fantasy 15
And
has,
that's
and the
out
way PT
now,
did.
right? Like you can
The
download
demo
that.
is,
is, yeah.
Apparently, you have to go. It's really difficult to find.
And it's plus only. I think.
Oh, is it?
also.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. That makes sense, though.
But you have to go to the page where, I mean, it's not featured on the E3 or anything. Maybe it is by now.
It went up late, so and maybe they just
Yeah.
had a weird rollout problem.
You had to go to
but-
the actual page and then scroll down to the free. I don't know. It's a weird thing, but yeah, I've heard it's actually good. We ran into like CVX Freak. You guys know him,
the name.
Alex
biggest
Aniel,
Resident Evil fan.
Ah, okay.
crazy Resident Evil fan, and he was cautiously optimistic about the new direction.
All right, that's good to hear. I mean, like I'm a guy who has never really liked Resident Evil, so
Right.
you know, but I was able to look at that and go like, you know,
Even like 4 era, did that not capture
it
your?
the shooting
No.
never felt quite right for me.
Tanky.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. If 4 didn't get you, I was just like, that's where
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was always tough for me. So
Yeah.
it just, but I appreciate that, like, in the face of those last couple of games really not getting it done for them, that they were able to
Thank God.
to actually
Yeah.
do something major.
Like-
I think that's huge.
Right, like it was kind of headed. I don't know if I would call it like a Gears direction, but it was definitely like way more action.
Parts of 6 were absolutely chasing Gears.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just so.
Which is weird when you consider that 4 kind of
4 is the game
is
that
the
made
game that made Gears
made
happen.
Gears, yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
Yeah, that flipped the script.
5
on
always
it.
felt to me like they saw 4 and didn't actually understand what made it good and just took what they saw and like went in that direction, you know, and then it sort of fell down
like
the dude bro slide.
You liked? Did you play a co-op?
Yeah, I played
5
it
wasn't
co-op
bad.
a lot.
We didn't. I actually watched Mark play through 5. Like it wasn't bad. It just to me it wasn't Resident Evil anymore. At that point, it had become a new thing. You know.
Right. Yeah, I do feel like 5 was trading a lot off of. I mean, that was the first
sure.
one that they made without Mikami,
Mikami,
too.
yeah,
So it was
totally.
kind of like, what do we what do we do
yeah.
with this?
Yeah.
And I feel like 6 was completely lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do think I'm really happy that they're taking kind of like a ballsy. It seems
Yeah.
like new direction for
Yeah,
the thing.
credit to them for knowing when to throw in the towel and like
Yeah.
Right.
try
Yeah.
something different.
Or hey, you know, like horror has changed. Horror games have changed.
Right.
VR opened some doors. Like being able to
Streaming
kind
has
of look
opened
at,
some doors.
Yeah.
YouTubers have opened
Right.
some doors.
Like
right.
looking at that stuff and making something that might appeal to the type of people that are playing those sorts of games today.
Right.
As opposed to just going like, well, let's take it back to the tank thing. I mean, they
Right.
have enough games that they can reissue now that, you know, they can satisfy the people that want classic Resident Evil. So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, they seem like they can hit both ends of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the 7, the logo, I gotta give them
That's
props.
such beautiful.
Did you see the Japanese?
The Japanese logo
The
is
Z.
just as good.
I haven't seen it, but I did hear the.
Well,
Pretty
indeed.
clever.
So it's Biohazard, right? Is
Right.
the name. So
Yeah.
the Z is 7.
Oh, nice,
The number
nice,
7 with
nice.
the little.
Yeah.
Do I understand that it's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard
Yeah.
here?
So when they
Yeah,
Biohazard,
really?
they sent out a press release and it's Resident Evil
That's the
7 and then
subtitle.
Biohazard in all lowercase.
Right.
And
Okay.
then in Japan it's the opposite.
Biohazard 7 Resident Evil.
Yeah. That's
Really?
wow.
Okay, you can only do that once.
I know.
guess,
Right.
So.
Yeah. And then maybe when they get to the next game, they just at some point just
I
say
wonder
like,
if they'll
"Ah,
ever do
yeah,
the Castlevania
Resident
thing where they'll
Hazard.
just remember Castlevania in Japan was it was like
Eventually
Akumajo.
became-
Akumajo, yeah, it was like
Dracula,
Evil
yeah.
Castle Dracula,
Yeah.
and finally they're like, fuck it, Castlevania.
Done.
Let's just worldwide brand it
Yeah.
I almost wonder if the 7 was even necessary or if it was time to like fully
to go back.
reboot.
They already have
But-
2 just Resident Evils, right?
Yeah.
So
At this
That's
point,
okay,
though, if
yeah,
you really
sure.
want people to consider it like a main line with all the the side Resident Evils they have and everything else, you're gonna have to throw a number on it.
And I think,
Yeah.
like, you know, putting a number on it also kind of says, like, we take this very seriously as this is the next Resident Evil, not just some side thing, not just some weird move. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
I guess so. They're almost getting up in Final Fantasy territory at this point. You know, like
I
Yeah,
remember,
that's true.
I remember
It gets
talking
ridiculous
to
at a
some of the
point.
people that were on RE6 about, like, man, 6, that's a pretty high number. And they're like, yeah, I don't know if at some point we should probably take the numbers off because we don't want to be like Final Fantasy and have like Resident Evil 13 or so.
Right.
And here they are, you know, well, not them, I guess, but. You know.
did you guys get to do any of the PlayStation VR stuff like the Batman?
we
or
saw people playing it. It was
Star
there were
Wars or
lines and
Final
We're
Fantasy?
checking that stuff
Okay.
out.
We got
Okay.
for
appointments
sure.
for
But,
it, yeah.
but yeah,
I'm really curious about that stuff. I'm happy as, you know, we've been helping out like the Res Infinite Mizuguchi and that stuff. And so I was like super happy to see that stuff, just like that very name brand Final Fantasy, Star Wars, Batman. But I just want to know like what the actual experience is like, because that
Yeah.
will get people in to try it. But then if the experience is shitty, it could kind of backfire.
Final Fantasy looked like
so-
a really bad shooting
Yeah,
gallery.
it looked really
yeah,
bad.
it looked like a
real rough.
weird reuse of assets
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, and Batman kind of, you know, there's like a detective mode thing, but you know, it seems like a similar approach. I don't know, like
Little
I
mini
don't
thing.
I don't think I want those big brands to go all the way in.
Right.
And I understand why they don't.
Well, Resident Evil 7,
Yeah.
like really the entire game playable in
Yeah.
that is
That's huge.
crazy
That's huge.
ballsy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But like that's what I want out of a. You
Right.
know, if you're going to make a Batman game, make a Batman game. Don't have Criterion knock out one Battlefront mission.
Right.
You know, like really go for it.
Sure.
And because I think that does it a disservice where you get people like, oh, all these big names are here. I'm going to get one of these. Oh wait, these are 20-minute bite-sized things,
Right.
and now I'm stuck with 9 versions of Pong or whatever it ends up being. You know, like that's a weird. That feels like a bait and switch. Not to say that there are some very good Pong games in VR. You know, there's a lot of great
nothing
stuff.
against Pong.
No,
I mean,
Final Fantasy never struck me as something I'd want to play in VR, though. Did you? Like,
Well,
I don't.
but you can ride along with that, girl mechanic.
It almost seems like
and
half the
ogle
reason they
her.
made it was
you
so
know,
you could
from,
look at the
from,
girl.
from
which is-
experience, it seems like that's what people were way into.
So this is
Yeah.
something we were talking to somebody about last night. One kind of maybe helpful frame of reference for that whole thing is like in Japan, cameras will just straight up ogle women.
Yep.
Like there's a morning variety show that is actually like respected and watched, and they talk about politics and they talk about whatever's going on in the day. And the camera, like 2 or 3 times a show, there's always a model as always part of the different
Is it like
menagerie
one of the
people.
9,000 panel shows that are on?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those millions of variety shows, and the camera will just like look around. It's like hunting for a target, and then it'll go zoom, and it will like whoosh, right in 100 feet, and then it'll go brrr, and like literally up the curves of her body, and then she has to comment on something, and then it cuts away to the next thing. It's like. I don't know how they do it, but somehow it's okay. And in other shows too, they'll just zoom up. There's no like it's a face shot, but the boobs are in the. It's just right here. And so, I think you were seeing a little bit of the cultural like, hey, when she was grabbing the camera, like, oh, it's in VR.
Right.
Like,
yeah. They're a few years behind. I mean, they'll get there. Give them time. They
Yeah.
still, you know.
Yeah. You know, they have come a long way in
cultural
other
thing.
ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So, Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
You guys check it out?
So the one
Did you
game
guys-
that we got to play
Yeah.
today,
Yes.
and the one game we really wanted to play, I think most out of this entire show.
Worth flying to the
personally,
U.S.
right.
to
Yeah.
see for sure.
Yeah, so we got to play. So there's 2. You played it as well.
I played
Brad.
the first, like the free roam demo. I didn't play
Okay.
the story-based
Okay.
stuff.
So there's like 2 demos are open to the public. One of them starts, it seems like at the start of the game, which is
Yeah.
basically what they showed in
Yep.
the first stream this morning.
Right. Yeah. We caught that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the controls, there was a lot to do in the controls.
Yep.
Surprisingly
There's
complex.
a lot to take in.
But you're right, and so like the screen the Wii U second screen is not inventory. It's not a quick menu or anything. It is telling you what the controls are at all times.
Oh, wow.
Do you think
Yeah.
that's going to be in the real game too, or
That's a good
I'm sure
question.
somebody's asked that question, and maybe this info is out there already. But like, I was
Right.
just sitting there thinking, like, that's got to be for demo purposes only. Maybe there's something they don't want us to see yet,
Right.
or maybe there's just like it's just like they figure out the show. They just want to make sure people can play it.
Or is it so designed around NX, which is the system
Right.
most people are going to be playing it on,
Right.
that that's a
Yeah,
really
that's
good question.
No, totally valid. Your
But it's
question's
really
totally valid
weird
too.
if,
Yeah.
if it's really weird if it's an integral part of the game. And they just said, you know what, for E3, the first time anyone's going to be playing it anywhere, we're just going to not have it
I mean,
there.
he's got a tablet, like his little, what do they call
Right.
it,
Yeah.
the Sheikah
Yeah.
something or other. That's
Yeah.
basically like
Yeah.
his iPhone.
I mean,
more
he's
or
walking
less,
around
like-
with an NX pretty much.
Right, that's it. Oh, you've solved it.
It
Yeah.
really does seem like, I mean, there are times where it's like, that's a smartphone. Like, he like keeps putting it
Oh, yeah.
down, and the map gets like
Dude,
downloaded
yeah, it's
into
like
it.
it's like
Right.
he's just straight up like swiping NFC to open
He's
locks
updating
and
his
stuff,
apps.
You know?
and, yeah.
Will you find
has-
Amiibo in that game? Can you like?
They had Amiibo at the demo kiosk.
No, I know that the
But yeah,
Amiibo
I know.
will work with
Yeah.
the game,
Right,
but
right.
I want to
Yeah.
find
In
a
the game- in the
virtual
game,
Amiibo,
meta
the
Amiibo.
Amiibo,
Yeah.
and find a little Waluigi out there and
Amiibo.
tap it. And
They have
see
the
what happens.
Assassin's Creed towers, which I know you guys were going to be excited
I didn't
about.
see one of those, but I
I
heard.
I
Yeah.
heard, yeah.
So
and I was
it's
like, well,
Straight up filling icons on the map.
It fills in your map, and then I think it's a fast travel point.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
later.
that makes sense. There's like a logic to that you can't deny.
Right.
Yeah.
But at this point, so many games have done that mechanic. That,
And apparently,
as soon as I saw him climbing, I was like,
right,
oh,
that's where this is going. Apparently one of the things that they're doing, which I think is a good idea, is so when you were wandering the world in any other previous Zelda games, it was like little things sprinkled throughout that you would just step in and find a chest or whatever, but you were just killing things. And then you go into a dungeon, and there's where your puzzles are. And it's just like shitload of puzzles, and then you leave, and then it's nothing until the next dungeon, and then puzzles. Apparently they're taking like little one-off 1 or 2 puzzles. We got kicked out before, so and those are part of those little things that do a waypoint, which I think is a really smart idea to kind of spread that out a little bit more.
Are you talking about the shrines that you go under?
Yes,
I did a couple of
exactly.
those. Yeah, so the shrines, those also become fast travel points when you complete them. They're underground. You take a little elevator down. The one I did, I saw 2, and then I got the thanks for playing just as I was starting the second one. But it took me like 2 minutes to finish it. It had like 1 short puzzle in it.
Right.
And I didn't get any item or any kind of like progression stuff out of it. But I guess it becomes a fast travel
just your
thing.
little,
It just kind of.
Did it make you feel good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right.
I used that magnetize,
you had that
the
thing?
magnet rune.
I
and
didn't get that, yeah.
Moved a big slab of iron and made a bridge with it and ran across, and that was the puzzle.
How did that feel?
It was okay. You could use the gyroscope.
Okay.
Use the D-pad too. So you have these runes. They're like magic spells. They're like a different system from your gear.
Okay.
And the magnet one lets you lock onto and manipulate any metal object. And you can move it back and forth with the D-pad and also use the gyroscope to move it around.
And there's one that manipulates time?
I didn't see that one,
Okay.
but I would believe it, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like they are going just like all out, let's throw everything
Dude,
in
yeah,
here.
there are systems on systems in that game.
Yeah.
There's the temperature stuff, there's the little sound meter.
The sound meter sound
there's
seems like-
crafting, there's cooking. Like
Yeah.
the cooking was described to me in a way that made it sound like Monster Hunter cooking because the Nintendo rep that was there talking like, so we were hoping like, maybe you upgrade your stamina later because you can't sprint very long as it is right now with this short
That
stamina.
has to happen, right? Because also anytime you're climbing and you can climb on anything, that meter just starts
you just
ticking
do
down.
pull-ups like until you get infinite grip and it's fine.
Metal Gear.
Yeah.
That all
So-
felt
so-
a lot like Monster Hunter 4, all the climbing mechanics and
So the
everything.
Nintendo rep was saying like, you can cook certain recipes to get more stamina, and if you cook a perfect recipe, then you can double your stamina meter.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
so
that
that's what it's
sure
about.
sounds Monster Hunter-ish.
Like,
Right.
You can get temporary extra hearts and
Yeah,
stuff
that's
too.
I
I was going to say,
exactly what
did
it
that seem
sounded
like
like.
it was a temporary boost?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
if
they
you cook
said-
it perfect,
No,
is it a permanent?
they said it. We asked. They said it was temporary.
Huh.
So
Yeah, that's So I'm not a Monster Hunter guy. I just don't think I ever will be. But Far Cry had all of its syringes and stuff like that, and a lot of games that have those kind of temporary boosts, I feel like I never want to actually rely on them.
Right.
I always have this feeling of just like I'm going to save those materials and just get good and get through it. So I
And then you
wonder.
end up at the end with like 600
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
syringes
it's like,
of
I
of
can
the
fire
type or
rockets for the
whatever.
next 9 hours.
This
'cause I
feels.
haven't-
We just saw it today for the first time, but it feels like a game that wants you to keep engaging with those systems, though, because like your weapons break. Like you're going to have to constantly
So
go
that
out and get
was-
new weapons
Yeah.
You
because
pick up
they.
a sword and you get 4 of them or something, and
Right.
then I was like immediately like, okay, these must break if you're
Yeah.
getting multiples of things. But I think the weapon switching, I don't know what you thought. I really liked it. It was super easy and fast.
Yeah, it's quick.
Unlike, one nice thing, even if it was on the touchscreen, you have to stop, look down while you're in the middle of combat or coming into a situation where you're like, I want a different weapon. You're just basically like pushing on the D-pad and then, I think it's the D-pad
is,
and then
yeah.
moving over in the
right stick.
right stick and then letting go. And it sounds probably a little more obtuse than it actually is. It happens really fast.
Yeah, it's accessible.
And then arrows are just their own thing. So you can, and at any time, you have the bow accessible to you. So
Right.
when you
Yeah.
see that, explosive barrel, or you see that shot, they showed that thing in the demo with it hanging over, or you see the livestock or whatever you call it, the wandering animals around that you're going to get food or whatever. You can just quickly like whip out the arrow. I really liked that part of it.
Yeah, it's nice to see Nintendo embracing complex controls too, because like what I was saying earlier, like the controls to me at first were like daunting because there's like every button does something else, and you have to like if you want to snowboard, you have to get your shield out, then you gotta be running, and then you jump, and then while you're jumping, you gotta hit another button to put it under you, and like. It's just it all feels like it'll make sense after like 10 minutes of play or whatever.
Right.
But traditionally they've been like averse to that, right? They've always kind of tried to keep it overly simple. So I'm glad that it feels like if you want to really get into it, you'll be able to do like cool stuff in this game.
And do stuff with like just the kind of basic controls instead of like that might be something they would relegate to like the touch screen and be like tap here to go into snowboard,
Right.
something like that. So
Exactly, yeah.
yeah,
But
that's
I feel like, even that, so like you've done that in previous Zelda games, right? Like you've snowboarded, not the way that you do in this game.
Right.
But I feel I kept thinking that a few times through it. Part of it's probably like the wolf that you get if you unlock the amiibo, even though it's or you use the amiibo to unlock it. I kept feeling like they took this from this game, they took this from this thing, they took this from this game, and it's just like they're like, fuck it, let's just throw everything into this, and like everything we have, kind of like they did with Fire Emblem,
Right.
where they're just like, this is a greatest hits thing, and it's open world now. Let's just throw everything we got into it. Where you have like all of the systems, like the cold. You have new things too, but it felt like, you know, like your Wind Waker kind of combat mechanics, which were my personal favorite of the series. There's shades of that where if you jump at the right moment when something's attacking you, you get like access to a special attack. You lock onto something, you can kind of jump around. I mean, there's the actual jump button this time.
You can disarm the enemies, which was in Wind Waker.
I didn't even
like
realize
knock
that
weapons
part.
out of their hands and stuff.
Right, yeah.
But then, you know, you have like the wolf thing going on from Twilight Princess, even though I know it's completely different, but you have like a time mechanic from, you know, that could be its own kind of Zelda game in any other universe. There's just like, it just seemed like there was a ton of different stuff going on. I will say the one thing that I noticed from the demo is it didn't seem like the world felt like just a little bit empty to me. Like we were running around looking for like, oh, I want to fight more.
Right.
More
I wonder
guys.
if that's, you know, if this is just
It's
like this
big.
starting plateau, if it's
Right.
going to be like, hey, here's a little more, like kind of get your feet wet. And
Yeah,
Right.
because watching the stream,
head towards Death Mountain if you want to get real. You know.
Right. That's
Right.
where the shit's gonna.
watching them playing, they played stuff on the streams that wasn't available for us, and like some of the sections they were in were really cool. I mean, more enemies, you know, they were showing like how the enemies kind of have their own camps here and there, and like, you know, you go to certain places where you're going to get in more fights than you would otherwise, and at night, like the Stalfos come out, you know,
I
the
saw that, yeah,
skeletons,
and you knock their heads off and stuff like that.
But my favorite part of the whole thing, I think, was just the fact that now there's this whole new system of taking the enemy's weapons and using them, and there's so many
Yeah.
different kinds of weapons, and that to me is really interesting. Like they had that one where like with the skeletons, you can like have their arm and like use the arm against them.
Nice.
And like
Yeah.
while the arm's like in your back pocket, it's like dangling and everything. It's like the
That's
hands
great.
are still like moving and stuff. It's really cool. It does.
Oh,
It tries
nice.
to touch your butt. Well, that's what it looks like.
Well.
It's like back there doing this.
I like the thing I like about that is immediately you get attacked by an arrow and you get excited because you're like, oh, if I kill that guy now I can get a bow,
Yep.
right? Like so
Yep.
you have that which you get in games, you know.
It's
Very much
yeah.
fending for yourself.
It's emergent.
There you go.
and it's
Sure, yeah.
It's doing all the stuff that I feel like we've been asking for. Like we all have been saying for a while now that we want like a Zelda that doesn't hold your hand, that like starts you out basically with nothing like
Right.
the first game.
Yeah, good on them. Like that demo or that thing they showed looked like the intro of the game, and like within
Right.
2 minutes of that, you're
Very
just
little
out.
text
You're just
too,
out in
right?
the field running around doing stuff.
Yeah, well, we're going to wrap it up a sec, but one more question for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, there's a little bit of speech in there, but more importantly, they showed Link talking. Like it's not spoken dialogue, but there was like a dialogue tree of who are you?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh.
like
Oh, right,
the
right.
inferred speech of Link. Like, what do you think?
Controversial.
Yeah,
John.
What do you think?
Where do you fall on this?
I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. I mean, that's fine. It's not like he's going on like long diatribes. I mean, he's just basically like saying the basic. In fact, one of them was just ... It wasn't even like he
right,
was
yeah,
talking.
yeah.
What do you think of the
Technically-
voice acting? Because you were up until now at the rumor that there was going to be voice acting.
Are you one of those people?
Yes, he's
I
one
don't
of those,
want
he's
it
one of those
unless
people.
it's going to be great. And it's hard to do good voice acting. I have to do it myself sometimes. I've had to direct it myself, and it's really difficult. But I got to say, the one voice that we heard sounded great. It was really good, and they had, it was I guess a British accent or a classic accent or whatever you want to call it.
Little-
But
like a fantasy
It sounded,
accent.
fantasy accent, but it sounded great. Like if all the acting in the game sounds that good, I'll be fine.
But it seems like everybody, because the old man was not.
I don't think there's
voice
going to be a lot
acting.
of
He wasn't
voice.
voiced.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah.
or maybe they don't
Maybe-
want to show us. It seems like there's a lot of things they didn't want to show us yet.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but the look of it too, like the whole Studio Ghibli thing that they're
Yeah.
doing, I think they've experimented here and there, and they went a little too far this way with Skyward Sword. Maybe they went, I mean, I love Wind Waker, but maybe it was a little too cartoony. And now I feel like they found like this really sweet spot with the look of it, where
It just looks so good.
Even the logo
so
looks like a
good.
Ghibli logo. Like it looks like Nausicaa. Or like there's the part in the beginning with the when they showed like the Guardians, and they were like they were covered over with dirt and stuff. They looked like
Yeah.
they've been there forever, but they have like the technological
Right.
kind of look to them. That was very like Castle in the Sky, like super influence there,
And-
obviously.
Yeah, and they don't have the horsepower, and you're seeing stuff like God of War and stuff like that, where you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe like games look this good on consoles.
Right.
But they have to make it up in art direction, and I think they that they're doing it. You know what I
Seems
mean?
like it. Definitely.
So I've heard some stuff about like just in the interviews in the last couple of days saying that the NX version is exactly the same. I do hope that it at least like there's like a little bit of frame rate stumble here or
right.
there.
It wasn't super smooth.
And I'm hoping they don't mean
stuff,
that.
or just like, hey,
Yeah.
you know, like maybe there's a spot here too. We could, you know, get some extra lighting, you know, to do a few things.
Yeah,
you
maybe
know.
it's smoothed out a little bit or stuff like that. But yeah, like first, like good on them on actually going back to the first. Basically, it seems like delivering on what everybody's been kind of asking for, is like less hand holding, more freedom, more like trust in me, the player, to
break
figure
up
it
the
out.
structure. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
More stuff to
Get
do.
away
Now they just
from-
got to get it out. Because what is it, 9 months away maybe? That's a long time before
Right.
I get to play it again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, maybe they'll have some other event where they could show it off or something.
That would be nice.
They have other things to announce. That you know, that would be a game they could show that version.
You'll play it. You'll play it at
someday.
Space World.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly.
Oh,
wait
yeah.
till
Space
Space
World,
World.
baby.
Just wait till
Wait
Space
till
World.
Space World.
Yeah.
The old adage.
All right, John, Mark, thanks so much for coming
as
by.
always.
Thanks for having us.
Always
as
a
always.
pleasure to see you.
Have a good time with
and,
this.
and have a great show.
You too.
All right, we
Thanks,
will
guys.
be back after a break, and we are going to get some more guests here to talk. So stay tuned. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. It is time for our post-show E3 2016 Night 1 coverage. Words to continue. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, and I'm joined by a new couch full of guests. From Firaxis, we've got Ed Beach. How you doing, sir?
Great.
Great. Thanks for coming. Greg Kasavin of Supergiant Games.
Hello.
Good to see you again.
You too.
Palmer Luckey from Oculus. Great to see you again.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, we are back here in this hotel, a different floor, a different bit of a motif, but we are back here again. And it seems like it's a bit of a different show this time. Palmer, a lot has changed.
You're gonna go right to that.
A lot has changed since we last spoke. I mean, you've now shipped product. You've got hardware out there in the world. How's it going?
Wow, when you said it was a different show, I thought you were going straight to the where's E3 going angle. I was like, whoa, for the throw.
No, that's the stuff that like we can get into. But I think we all know where E3 is going, right?
I'm so excited to be here at E3.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And so let's see. Yeah, a lot has changed. We finally shipped our own consumer product. We've worked with Samsung before to ship Gear VR, but that's their hardware product. It's powered by Oculus.
Right.
And our platform works with it, but it's not actually our hardware. But we've shipped the Rift now, and we're shipping that. We're getting caught up on pre-orders soon, so that's nice.
Yeah, I bet.
And we're showing off a bunch of games for Touch, which we're shooting for later this year, and we've got a bunch of games that are going to be launching with Touch, and a few that are going to probably end up further out.
Cool. Yeah, I'm coming through on Thursday to see the Touch stuff. Like seeing the prototype controllers last year was really exciting. Those things just
Yeah,
felt
they're a
really
lot
good,
they're a lot closer to done. Like what you're going to be trying at E3 is they're very close to final engineering samples. Like what you try is very, very close to what people are going to be getting in a few months.
Great. Greg, you're here with Pyre. Is it in the Sony booth? Where is the game?
No, we're not here in any official capacity.
Okay. So you're here hanging
checking things out. Yeah,
You're here
pretty much.
instead of working on Pyre.
I suppose that is
Nice.
That is true.
You probably are. I imagine that like you're up in the room every night, up in a hotel room somewhere, kind of still working on it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We just showed the game for the first time a few weeks back at PAX East, which was very lovely for all of us. Always like a relief to put the thing out there and see that people are excited for it, and now we just got to knuckle down and finish the rest of it. But yeah, take a brief break to check things out at E3. It's a show I love dearly, even though that I suppose not everyone who goes to E3 year after year feels that way, but I have always enjoyed the show myself.
I always enjoy it as well, but it is one of those things where I think like the relevance of the show is kind of always one of those fluctuating topics, and this year just seems like there's a lot of open room on the show floor.
That was an interesting experience. I've not spent too much time on the show floor, but that was an interesting feeling that I had as well. It's like, hey, these aisles are a little wider than they used to be.
There's a lot of room here.
Yeah.
Ed, Civilization
really thoughtful,
6 is in the works.
Yep.
Out here, kind of showing it off for the first time in a big
Sounds like
way.
we're in a pretty similar situation because we just showed it off for the first time. We just announced a month ago. So sort of a second round of everyone getting a chance to take a look at it, and reaction's good. So we're really really excited.
Cool.
We have, I've been back in my hotel room looking and see what's going on back at home.
Just like people are people like checking in code, you're just like looking at the commits. And
Oh,
going
actually, I
like,
broke the build last night.
Nice. All right.
Yes, achievement unlocked.
Yeah.
But it's actually my first E3 too.
Okay.
So it's eyes wide open, just taking everything in. I've been to plenty of GDCs, been to PAXs, all this kind of things. Just for whatever reason, I was never sort of like front and center in the marketing of anything.
Sure.
So it's fun to take it all in.
So have you been lined up pretty much just to kind of talk about the game for all 3 days? Have you been able to get? Are you going to be able to get on the show
around a bit. We had some time kind of before everything opened at noon today, so I think I've walked by just about everything. I haven't really checked out a full demo. The Oculus stuff is looking super interesting. So I'm going to try to sneak into a few things here when I get a chance, but pretty much it's interviews and getting everyone excited about Civ 6.
Cool. And Palmer, how about you? Last year it seemed like you were given a lot of demos. It seemed like it felt like I was wondering, is he just locked in this room the whole time, virtually communicating with people one at a time through that demo? Or
last year I was locked in the room basically the whole time giving toy box demos by choice. I had the keys, but I threw them away or something. There's some
you locked the door from the inside and said, "Just bring them to me one at a time."
Well, yeah,
I will launch fireworks at them.
They didn't even need to come into my room. It was actually my room, and then the room I was playing with them remotely in. So. Yeah, I was just in my room the whole time. I barely saw a person all of E3. It was just me alone in a room talking to disembodied heads in Oculus toy box.
That was last year. Watching that demo was a real profound moment for me. So I didn't do the demo. Dan Reichert did the demo, but I was in the room with him while he was doing it, and I was able to kind of watch him interact with you. And it was a moment where a lot of stuff about the notion of like presence and telepresence in a way really clicked in this kind of like. In this very social way. Sure. And that's been one of the things that has really stuck with me as like one of the E3 things, having been to every E3, just going like, that's one of those like game-changing moments, world-changing moments. So I just wanted to tell you that. It was just like
I couldn't say it better myself. I mean, like, I think VR is going to be huge for telepresence. Like, even outside of games, that's going to be huge to be able to have digital communication that's as human as real world communication. We're obviously not there yet. We've got a long ways before we get there. But and then like the controllers that we have today, like the goal is to provide a sense of hand presence, like feeling like your hands are really in the game, tracking your hands pose so that you really feel like you're interacting things in some way that's roughly equivalent to how you would interact with them in the real world.
Right.
Obviously, we're not even close to being able to actually simulate everything that we want to be able to simulate, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and now that the Rift is out there and more and more people are getting their hands on them, it's that stuff is happening, and we're covering VR and we see mixed reactions from people. There are the people that seem very excited about it, and then there is still this kind of like wide array of skeptics who, in many cases, they haven't had access to a headset yet.
I don't think that they're skeptics about VR. I think they're skeptics about the progression of VR. You talk to most people, ignoring people who haven't tried VR. People that used to be in the 80s and 90s, the people who were most excited about VR were the ones who hadn't tried it. They were people who had read about it or seen movies, and they didn't understand how limited it was. People who tried it, they're like, oh shit, we're actually really far behind. Whereas today, it's kind of the opposite. People who try it are usually the ones who are excited. But when you talk to people who have tried it, there are some pessimists where they say, oh, it's not good enough, the resolution isn't good enough, it's too expensive, there's not enough content, blah, blah, blah. Those are all reasonable arguments. VR isn't for everyone today, and that's just totally true. But if you talk to the same people, you say, well, wait a sec. What if you could put on a pair of glasses, like the pair that you're wearing anyway? And what if they were only $50? And what if it was like Matrix quality virtual reality? You truly feel like you're anywhere with anyone. Then would you be interested? They're like, well, yeah, I'd be interested in that, but that's not what VR is. But that'll never happen. Or, oh, that's like 100 years away. I'm like, okay, but you're saying there clearly you are interested in the concept of VR. It's just a matter of the quality versus the price versus the content. And I think we're going to get to the point where it makes sense for everyone's going to want VR and be able to get it well before we get to the $50 Matrix glasses. And it's just figuring out where that point is. I think there's very few true VR skeptics where they say, no, VR will never take off. They're just pessimistic about how long it will take to get to the Matrix glasses.
Yeah, I think, like we see it in a different way because from the gaming angle of it, where you see people that go like, well, this is very much like this is like Kinect. This is like the Wii.
Right.
And they're looking at a lot of the early games that have come out now. You know, there's stuff out there that's like,
They're not all good.
it's a lot of early access games out there that are a form of Pong. And that's not to say that's all of them, like some of them are actually pretty good, but it's these bite-sized experiences that are sometimes being sold for too much money. And I think it seems like the sort of thing that is kind of souring people on these early days. How much do you care about like that perception stuff? Or are you just kind of like long view, like whatever, we'll figure that out, like we're figuring it out?
I mean, there's a wide range of things. Like I'd say, you know, I'd be a little sympathetic to the devs when you say, oh, they're charging too much for it. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, what if too much is not enough to make back a tenth of their budget, even if it has
Especially
a high
with the
attach
install
rate?
base of the
It's
headsets and
just
stuff
pretty
like
small.
that.
So
Like,
it's really tough for people
Right.
to take on that risk. So like, I mean, that's one of the reasons we work with so many devs. It's not because it's because there's so many devs that want and need that help. I mean, like it's very hard to charge a reasonable price for a lot of these games, especially if you're putting any significant money into it. I think consumers are pretty savvy though. I don't worry about the handful of bad games ruining the perception of VR for everyone. I think for the most part, the things that get demoed are going to be the things that are compelling, and the things that people say, hey, you got to check this out. It's going to be the good stuff. And there's, of course, some danger, I think, more on the hardware side, where you have companies that are saying, oh, we're going to use our muscle to, push either this piece of hardware, or maybe like I've seen advertising experiences. Advertising experiences are the bane of my existence. There are a few good ones, but they're like, hey, look, we're going to spend money to advertise this fast food chain or something, and we're going to use VR, and they don't care about the quality, they don't care about anything except getting the press and rushing the project through. Those are the types of things that'll give people a bad VR experience. But when it comes to like the Pong game, I don't think it's going to turn anybody off of VR unless somehow there's some moneyed interest that's making sure everyone only plays that game their first time, and that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Now, Ed, with a franchise like Civilization, obviously you have this huge fan base already. You know, it's Civ.
25 years of fans.
Yeah. So I mean, on some level, you've got that base of people that are always going to be interested in what you have to say about what's next, but sometimes they can be your harshest critics.
They're
as
very
well.
opinionated as well.
Yeah. How do you walk that line when it comes to designing a new Civ?
I think one of the really cool things is the Civ community is really, really active, and there is so much, even between cycles of our games, there's still people playing it multiplayer. There's still actually, it's been on the top 10 most played games on Steam ever since we shipped Civ 5.
Right.
So there's still a ton of people talking about it and playing it, and actually the Reddit community for Civ has just blossomed since Civ 5 came out, and actually it's like one of the biggest communities we have out there, and that's just always people posting new shots about what happened in their game and talking about it. And so that community is so bought in and so active that we have a really good sense of kind of what they're looking for and what's excited them about Civ 5, and then maybe what didn't hit the mark.
Sure.
So that was sort of how we approached things when we were going with Civ 6. It was like take a really, not just a post-mortem of what we did right and wrong developing it, but we just sort of went through the game step by step and like, okay, let's take the combat system, what was working, what wasn't working. Let's take the diplomacy, what was working, what wasn't. And then we threw in new ideas, just like brand new approaches to things. By the time we'd done that, we had plenty of ideas on what's going to be a worthy new iteration for this. And from that point in time, it was just trying them out, and we like to try things out early and throw away the things that don't work. We had some successes where things like worked right out of the gate, and they were like, plugged it in, and like, this is something we're going to build around right away.
Yeah.
And then there were other things where it's like, throw that one out.
Like not
do
even,
it again.
We're not even going to iterate on that thing. Just like push it out of the game.
We had certain systems where we've
we've
thrown out 4 times, and it was version 5 that we finally hit what we were going to stick with. So it's kind of fun to do that. And I have worked on a ton of projects where I've come in and closed them out or done expansions, or like Civ 5 was a good example where I was involved in the base game, but I wasn't the lead designer until we got to the expansions. And then on the expansions, I took over that. But this is the first one where I got to like be the lead designer right from the very beginning and kind of see it all the way through. And that's just really energizing. And being able to throw things away is like fun because, you don't, sometimes you're stuck and you can't throw things away. But when you can say, nope, that's not good enough, we need a new take on this. Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
We were able to do that. And
It's cool that you have that kind of breathing room to be
Yeah.
able to make those decisions.
yeah, we don't anymore.
Yeah, I guess, at this point, you're far enough along. It's
Right.
like, no, you
But I
have an
think,
announced date. It's time to go.
Yep, but we're happy with where everything's at. So
Great.
It's a fun place to be.
Yeah, and Greg, Supergiant hasn't made a sequel, so like where Civ kind of at least has a very similar game to kind of look at and jump off from. How do you go from from Bastion to Transistor to now Pyre? How does that process? Like what kind of feedback can you get from the previous game that informs the next one? Is there anything there?
I think that the feedback is mostly, the part where people have responded well to our previous games, which we think is a lot just due to the fact that they're kind of new kinds of games. We think people who've even taken a chance on our games like Bastion and Transistor, people are probably fairly open to new experiences, because they're not sequels to anything.
Right.
You had to take a chance on them in the first place. So we think our audience is pretty. It's crazy, first of all, that we even have an audience as like a small independent studio. But yeah, we have people who have responded well to new ideas from us, and ourselves as a team, just to keep ourselves energized creatively, we like to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, and that means trying to do something new that we haven't done before that makes us, a little bit afraid initially, and not just be filled with a sense of uncertainty about how it's all going to play out, because we get very both afraid and also excited about that, of like, well, how's this going to work? And we start kind of theory crafting it like crazy, and that ends up being a design after a while. I think a lot of it's so rare for studios to achieve any success at all, and often when they are successful, they can become bound by their success, right? It's like they can still find really interesting and exciting ways to make new versions of games that they've made before. But in our case, at our scale, it's been really cool just to be able to essentially kind of do whatever with each new game, and for as long as that keeps working, we have enjoyed continuing to do that.
Yeah.
It's not that we love the worlds of the games that we've created. It's not that we would never go back to them or whatever if we wanted to.
I mean, you have no mandate to never make a sequel, right?
No,
if the right idea struck, would you consider revisiting?
No, I mean, we inherently don't know what I think for us it's like continuing to surprise people and continuing to surprise ourselves is what we would most like to do, and that may mean something like that, because if we become too predictable in making something new and different every time, then we're going to make the same thing now and throw you off or something like, I don't know. That probably doesn't make any sense.
What if you just were able to combine just like a Smash Brothers style, bring all the characters from these games together?
Hey man, I'd make a fighting game in a freaking heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
But
of course you would.
of course I would. But hey,
you should make a trilogy, but then you make the third one next.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you should say that. I like to approach things as though I'm already making the sequel to something that existed before. It's kind of turns out to work nicely from like a storytelling standpoint.
Like
pretend like there's already
implied backstory, like all this stuff happened.
Pretend like there's a thing that everyone already knows, and it turns out that like leads to better characters.
And the system in Pyre with the being able to highlight text and get that description seems like it really serves that. You can kind of throw out a lot of these terms that a lot of other games would explain the hell out of up front, and just be like,
Jeff, ever since we were brothers, and you used to defy my father and whatever, all this kind of that kind of like dialogue and exposition. It's like we can sidestep all of that and make it feel like a world that's been around for a long time. And just we've been fortunate to just sort of have these games where we shove people in at the deep end, and it makes us again a little scared during development. It's like, are people gonna understand what the hell is going on here? But it's we cross our fingers at some point, and it's worked out well.
Yeah.
I always it's like I think there's good reason to give game players a ton of credit for their sort of intelligence and ingenuity. They are like capable of really insane accomplishments. So it's like, give them the benefit of the doubt to figure it. Like, if something is interesting, they're going to figure it out. They're going to want to dig into it and understand it.
Have you read Anthem?
No, I don't think I have.
It's a book that does like a lot. It assumes the reader. It it has lots of references as if the world already exists, and it's super hard to figure out. And one of the things in the intro is the writer's like, you have to assume that your reader is intelligent and smart, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to write
Who
a
wrote
good
that?
thing. I think it was Neil Stephenson, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. I actually haven't read. I have not made it through it. I started a long time ago, and then he might have given me too much credit.
Just in the middle, you're like, I don't know what any of this is even
But
referring
hey,
to.
Even if someone gives you too much credit, it still feels good to get any credit at all when it comes to that stuff. So, hey, thank you
Right.
for making me think I don't suck or whatever, and whether it's like Dark Souls or
Well,
a
and now-
challenging book or something like that.
Well, now I
It's
get to
like-
name drop it and be like, oh, have you read that? Similar concept.
See, you don't even have to finish the book to do that. Now I know that, and I'm going to take it over here and do
Perfect.
That. Yeah. So when it comes to iteration, obviously you've got your first consumer desktop. I mean, obviously the Gear VR is as well. And now it seems like the touch controllers are next. But I think one of the things when you talk about the $50 Matrix glasses, the far-flung future that maybe isn't as far-flung as people think, it starts to beg the question: is what do you see as like the cadence for updates for like a Rift 2, a second generation of hardware, this sort of stuff? And I'm not trying to get you to spoil hardware plans, but just like, what do you think the right answer is? I know that's got to be.
I think the right answer is going to depend on what I don't think that there's necessarily going to be a fixed cadence that you've seen with phones.
Like every
or
year we've
consoles.
got a new.
Well, like with consoles, not that they've really been totally genericized, but they basically are. And it's basically like we're getting more power, and whenever you get enough power, you can kind of move up another generation.
Yeah.
VR is not going to move in a cadence like that. I think that there are going to be some really obvious leaps, like lighter weight, lower cost, higher resolution, better optics, wider field of view. But when it comes to things like, let's say haptic feedback, how do you actually feel like you're touching things, or things like the vestibular mismatch, the imbalance between what you see with your eyes and what you feel in your inner ear. Those aren't going to come along in regular predictable steps. They're going to come along as huge things that are going to radically change how VR works. And those are probably going to be put into the technology as soon as they're viable, kind of regardless of whatever cadence exists on a pure content development or business
Kind of
development
as
side.
the problems get solved, or as these solutions come.
And so I think you're going to see a cadence of, sometimes you'll see earlier things that happen where it's a lot of these obvious wins, and then sometimes when these things come along, maybe it'll take a little longer to get them in, or maybe it'll jump into the same product. It's not 100% clear.
Sure.
But I think, the easy wins that we're going to see are, higher resolution, lighter weight, lower cost, wider field of view. And those are going to happen. I think officially we've been saying somewhere between a phone and a console, which isn't very helpful.
Yeah, sure. Especially with the way consoles are becoming more like phones now.
Well, and what is a console? What is a phone?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. When we get into the especially now that the major consoles are just being built on the same platforms that the PC is,
And the same operating systems.
Right.
even.
Yeah. That stuff starts to get really strange. So you guys have done your partnership with Microsoft over at Oculus for getting controllers in the box. Seemed like there was a very prominent mention of the Project Scorpio Xbox One being capable of high-end VR. Does that mean? Do you think that means that the Oculus Rift will work with the next Xbox One hardware?
We have a really good partnership with Microsoft. I mean, there's the controller that we bundle with the Rift, but also like Minecraft is also on Gear VR and on Rift, and we've worked a lot with them on a lot of different optimizations that allow us to make for a better Rift experience on PC. So we get along really well with them. We have a really strong relationship there. But I'm not going to announce anything on this couch. I'm not going to announce anything on this couch today. Even if there was any truth, it's not going to happen. So I'm
you
not.
just write it on the board if you want. No. Sometimes we have to ask these things.
I understand.
Well, we're having Phil Spencer in tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll probably ask him the exact same question. So just have to kind of get out there a little bit.
Don't begrudge you.
Yeah. So what have you guys seen at the show so far, having time to get around? Has anything jumped out when you walked around this morning that stuck out at you really heavily?
I did kind of notice that, there were certain areas that lots of activity packed, and then there were some dead spaces in the back. So
Wait, there's a dead space here? They're finally making Dead Space 4. Great.
Yeah, there we
the
go.
planet
That was
will
it.
uneat
That was
the
it.
other.
That's where they should have put their booth.
I
Can you
know.
imagine?
It would have been perfect.
Super low key,
Yeah.
just like dead space.
But we've got a lot of cool stuff right around us. We've got the Lego stuff right behind us. That's just fun.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and I didn't see what happened with it, but there was a Capcom booth there that was like all bundled up and there
Oh,
was
right.
gonna be
Yeah, so
some
they
kind
had
of
all the
reveal.
Resident Evil 7 stuff
Right.
covered.
Right.
And all of that.
So I got to go look at it now that it's been, unveiled, but didn't make it back over to there later in the show, but I'll
Yeah.
make sure I check that out tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a lot of. It seems like there's just enough exciting stuff around the show that, as much as you might want to talk about the show being weird, like it seems like there's software. We're at that point in the cycle. Greg, did you make your way around the floor at all? Or you just kind of like hanging out with people, saying hi?
I've been unfortunately spent most of my time outside of the halls, but I think if I could play one game, it would probably be the Zelda game. Looked really interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff going on there. It's funny because it looks like Zelda for sure, but from a design standpoint, it's so different in a lot of ways that
Right.
kind of
It's
just a change of format and so many more things that it seems like you could do.
And more than just scope,
Yeah.
just in terms of just like hey, here's a bigger world. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we're changing just fundamental things about weapon acquisition and durability and all this
Yeah,
other
yeah.
stuff.
It just seemed really exciting. I was just really, I don't know. On the other hand, I can wait and just play it when it's out. I know I want to play it. So, but it seems I was just excited to see more on that game. I don't think God of War isn't actually playable, is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
but
not- I don't believe it's out.
that kind of blew me away yesterday. I was very, very excited to see that game.
Yeah.
In a way that I was actually sort of taken aback by it. I didn't think I cared as much as I did.
Same here.
In
Like
short.
I have never been able to care about a God of War game. Just that style of character action and the Kratos character has always just been kind of.
You don't like him?
He's just his whole thing is just like
He mad.
I'm mad.
Yeah, he mad.
But he's like an 80s action hero, but like in ancient times.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I don't know. It just everything about him, just like I'm this mad guy, and now here's this mini game where I'm gonna get it on, and now we're back to killing. It just never worked for me. So I never thought that like we kind of had an inkling that maybe there would be a God of War game here. It's just some stuff that leaked out a while ago, like Norse God of War. Like I don't even know what that. Like who cares? And then they started showing that, and it's like, oh wait, okay, this is kind of an open world. You're showing like an experience point pop up. There's things here that you're like, okay, this is a much bigger game. You could almost see like, well, it's hard to say without playing it, but there was you could almost see like a Dark Souls like influence on just kind of the pace of the combat.
Well, or even
and
just
some of
that
stuff.
even that kind of like behind the character perspective, even just like a Resident Evil 4 type of
the
thing,
facade.
instead of the like cinematic camera of the previous games. Even I was telling Alex just before this actually that like even there are plenty of games with like these themes of fatherhood or plenty of dad games or whatever.
Yeah.
Game developers getting old, having kids,
Right,
and thinking
yeah.
they're making games that resonate and whatever. I like that. And I myself am a father now, whatever. But none of those games really connect with me on that level. Typically, it's like whatever. I don't care. I can't relate to this. But for some reason, Kratos being like clearly just a pretty bad dad. I love the idea of a game where he's just like ruining his son, like the whole like here's how life works. And he's
Go
just,
hunt the deer.
and there's something that was really cool to me about that it's not. It's just kind of like about kind of a dysfunctional relationship, seemingly. I don't know. I'm just reading that into it, but
Sure.
that seemed way more interesting to me than what most dad games are doing.
Yeah. And I just can't help but look at that and just think like, well, either you're going to play the back half of this game as the son, because Kratos will be dead, or the son will die and Kratos will get really mad. He's like 10 times as mad this time, and the mini games are going to be filthier, and there's going to be more murder. Yeah,
I'm curious to see either way. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I guess that's that's weird praise. That's one of the, I think the most impressive things about it is that I definitely want to see more.
Yeah.
And every other God of War game I've seen has been like, all right,
you kind of think you know the drill after the
made
first
another one
one
of these, and I haven't really liked it. all along.
Yeah. The only other like random thing I looked at was the next King of Fighters game. I'm actually as an old SNK fan. Over time, I've gotten more and more excited for that. At first, I was like, dude, man, I don't know.
The character models kind of look.
Yeah, it's like whatever.
Yeah,
I just want SNK to make 2D games forever. Yep. So I'm skeptical of like a 3D game. But that game has just kind of looked better and better to me for whatever reason over time. I got really into Street Fighter V, and I like that people continue to make interesting fighting games these days.
Yeah.
They always have a level of, there's no League of Legends level fighting. Fighting games have always been kind of scrapping along on some level. Like they haven't really broken through super crazy yet or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of like that they haven't maybe on some level because I get to have my own, be part of a secret little club.
It feels like this kind of underdog thing. I guess I would actually say that like Smash Brothers is kind of like,
that's true.
If you take that as, a fighting game, it's very different being a 4-player thing. I know, Palmer, do you have any time left to play Smash at this point, or now that you've got stuff out, is it just?
I've only been smashing casually in 64 for the last few weeks. Like occasionally just doing a match or something because we have an N64 set up in our living room. But I have not been smashing seriously for some time.
Yeah.
There's a distinct lack of smashing in my life.
Is there like a feeling in the back of your head where it's like, we just need to get, once this happens, once we get this out the door, then the smashing can commence again, or do you think your time has passed?
My time hasn't passed.
Good.
The problem is you get out of practice, and actually the more out of practice you get, the less your desire, like the less the less passion there is to like jump back in, because you want to be like, oh, I'm gonna jump back in, I want to be so good, and then like you play, you're like, oh man, I'm so out of practice. I'm awful at this now, and it just makes you almost not want to play. Like I like feeling like I'm part of the club of people who are better at Smash than the average person, and when I'm no longer part of that club, it's almost easier to just say, I'm just gonna act like I'm a member of the club.
I can talk and talk,
and I can talk,
but I've been
talk.
so busy. Yeah, that's.
See, that's the real truth. I don't have to actually play Smash to get the cred of being a Smash player.
See, I know to ask you about Smash, so obviously, we've had multiple conversations about it. It's out there. Palmer loves Smash, so
I do love it.
It's already done. And there's obviously like a huge competitive aspect to Civ. How much attention do you have to? Is it just kind of an even split these days in terms of just like figuring out like how you're going to handle that aspect of the game versus kind of just people that want to play by themselves? And
it's important to us that we really get a good solid start with multiplayer this time. Multiplayer, the way I've been looking at Civ 5 is Civ 5 went out, multiplayer had sort of a rough launch on it, and we had to kind of really get everything in shape before the multiplayer took off. And here at the back end of things, I'm seeing just lots of people that are still playing at multiplayer. We're still seeing live streams where every week they have Civ matches. We're seeing, my nephew plays it every single day after school with his 15-year-old friends, and I get long emails about what should be in Civ 6 from my nephew, just volumes. We had a meeting of all of our people in our multiplayer group, and we've decided these are all the things you have to put in. So it's been fun to see how long the tail is for Civ, for a Civ game in the multiplayer world. There's still people playing Civ 4 crazily all the time in the multiplayer arena. Yeah. But I think if we can establish right away that we can do some new things with Civ multiplayer, we're looking at shorter matches right out of the gate.
Right, yeah.
We're both speeding up the tempo of things and also making it so that you don't have to get all the way to the end of history to have a victory. And we're having some like really interesting matches doing exactly that with our QA group internally and everything. And so we think when it comes out, we're going to have a chance to really capture a lot more of the multiplayer interest of everybody. Now the single player, there's still going to be the dominant, part of our fan base. And Civ is one of those games where you want to be able to spend a weekend playing through one session of it, and that just be your own experience, and nothing's going to take away from that. I'd say it's not too bad in terms of how those interests compete with each other. A little bit, like the multiplayer people are keenly aware of balance of things, and
Sure.
it's something that we can get away with in single player, just as like a fun element that maybe is a little OP in that one particular game. That's fine for single player. We have to think about those things in multiplayer. And one thing that it took a while for the multiplayer community in Civ 5 to really latch onto was that, we didn't have really mod support directly there, but there were ways that they could reconfigure the setup files and they could get modding available. And we had a whole Civ No Quitters league and mod that all got set up, and that sort of helped multiplayer take off. We have we have mod support for multiplayer right out of the gate this time.
Great.
And so it'll be very easy for the multiplayer community to come up with exactly the game rules that work for them. They can be slight variants of what we have in the base game, and for the single player audience. So we can do fun things for both.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Both sides can have things set up exactly the way they like it.
When you talk about faster matches, like what kind of speed,
We've
what
played-
average game length are you kind of looking to hit? Obviously, people will be able to have
It's
longer
tough
games
to get a
if they
Civ
want,
game in under an hour.
Right.
But I don't want, the 5 or 6 hours it really took for a Civ 5 game to complete is totally unacceptable. So we're looking at things that take less than 2 hours. We're experimenting with things that only take an hour. And so we're, finally tuning all that right now, and we have a bunch of different things we're going to launch with.
Get Speed Civ out there, and at some point,
Yeah,
it's just that's you get a professional
But,
Civ
there-
scene, esports. Like
Civ has a real slow, ramp up, and there's no reason you have to have that in a multiplayer match. And so there are a lot of just obvious things that you can do to get things going right away, and so we've really attacked that hard, and it's fun.
Yeah, Greg, with Pyre, the gameplay in Pyre does have kind of a naturally competitive aspect to it. You're kind of resolving situations in a. I've been referring to it as a sports-like manner, which it's some people straight up would mention NBA Jam when talking about it. And obviously you're building a campaign, you're doing all that sort of stuff. Has there been any? What's the current thinking on whether that might be something that you consider doing multiplayer for?
Yeah, it's something that is quite interesting to us. I think, by virtue of the kind of game it is. The single player solo experience is definitely our focus as with our previous games. Though the multiplayer is something we are continuing to investigate to see if we could do it properly. And by properly, I mean both not at the expense of the single player and also just sort of well in its own right. We know what we would do with it if we could achieve it, but it's something that we don't sort of approach lightly. So we definitely see a lot of potential in it in this game, and it's something that we ourselves on the team have we play it ourselves locally and so on. And when it comes to designing the characters and tuning the gameplay and even figuring out what what sorts of things we want to see the kind of AI opponents, the different characters that you're going to come up against, what do we want to see them do? A great way to model that is to just sort of play with it ourselves. So we're still technically pre-alpha. Despite what we've shown, we're relatively early in development. So we're in that juicy point where we still get to figure out those kinds of things. It's been great hearing people's interest. That is a component in the decision making that people are intrigued by that aspect at all. But we'll see if it's something.
Yeah, it seemed like there was definitely a lot of interest just in the game generally coming out of PAX.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, was there? Did you get that question a lot? At
Yeah,
PAX?
we did. I think that you get into these competitions that are set up as these symmetrical looking competitions against. It's essentially teams pitched against each other. So we weren't surprised that people asked. We expected people to ask us, and we talked about what are we going to say because we don't know yet. But what do we say other than we don't know?
Right.
And it's the part where we're looking into it, and if we could do it properly, we would love to do it. Mm-hmm. We have the, or this, but we have the chops for it. It's Andrew Wang is one of our engineers, our CTO. He's he worked on Modern Warfare before he came to Super. He worked on Modern Warfare 1 and 2, so he's been at the top of the food chain when it comes to really solid multiplayer experiences. So we we know what it takes, but with that comes a lot of respect for what the challenges of doing that properly
Sure.
are.
Yeah.
And being a small team, we don't go into that lightly. But yeah, we will see how that goes.
Cool.
It would be cool.
How many of your game design decisions are driven by emails from teenagers?
Not a lot. Thankfully for us, like since we haven't like sort of iterated on successive games in our franchises, like we don't get a lot of people like backseat designing our games in the way of something like a Civ.
That's incredible because I get lots of emails from
Yeah, we're lucky. Like we do sometimes. I mean, we do sometimes, but the thing is, like each of our games has just been some whatever different out of left field thing compared to the last thing we did. So, we like the words of encouragement that we get from people who've enjoyed our games like mean a lot to us sort of spiritually, and that really keeps us going. But the part where people like tell us to make a game exactly like we occasionally got like, oh, you should just make a transistor or whatever multiplayer game or something like that, but we don't really put a ton of stock into that. It's cool. We appreciate it because it's like someone who's like engaged with our games and super enthusiastic, and we try to sort of pick it apart for like, what is this person excited about really, other than this very specific idea, if there is something like that. But yeah, thankfully, our fans have generally let us alone and let us do our thing thus far.
So you're saying I should stop just texting you all the time, just Transistor Champion Edition?
No, man. From you anytime. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm amazed at how much game design can be packed into one tweet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's quite a bit that can be expressed in a tweet.
There are a lot. You get a lot of tweets about how to run a video game website, as it turns out too.
You should fill in the
exactly how reviews should be written and
Doesn't
scored
take that
and all
many
this sort of
characters
stuff,
to
right?
get it in there.
You can just get it right out there. I mean, and how much feedback have you gotten? I mean, you talk about getting a lot from
I get feedback.
from teenagers.
I get feedback all the time.
Seems like a lot of feedback heading your way lately.
Always.
Yeah, and how's that? Like, what can you pluck from a lot of that stuff? Is there how much of it is valuable? I guess I would say.
I mean, it's all valuable. Like there is always something you can learn, even from the worst, most uninformed feedback. A lot of times when someone says something that's just nasty and mean and uninformed, you're like, hey, we might not be doing a good enough job, like making sure that people like have access to a certain piece of information or something. So even that is valuable in some way. I think it's important to always listen to your community and listen to what they want and make sure that you're being make sure that you're listening to them. At the same time, I think you guys would probably agree. There's a lot of things that are not apparent to people on the outside or people who don't necessarily have experience actually working on.
Sure.
Any given thing, and so it's important to not make your priority, trying to make every single one person happy, because you can never make everybody happy, and you really need to prioritize. Like, you need to figure out and make a list of what's important to us, what's important to prioritize, what are people telling us is important to them, and then see how that fits into actually doing the right thing, because a lot of times, the right thing is not necessarily the most popular thing, especially in the short term. I mean, there's so many examples where people have thought that something, they've said, oh, this is crazy, I don't get, actually they don't say, I don't get this. That would be admitting that they might be wrong. They'll say, they don't get this. They should be doing, X, Y, and Z. And then it turns out, oh, hey, actually, I now I understand what that decision was, why it was made. Or people will just not agree to disagree and just keep disagreeing.
Sure. Yeah. It's been like
it's really tough. You just you have to balance that. I wish there was an easier issue.
Yeah,
easier way to handle it.
For sure. And there've been points as the Rift has gotten out to people. There've definitely been points where people were like, I thought this was going to happen. I thought this was going to happen, and it's been one of those things that I've been kind of sitting watching, going, I bet that deal with Best Buy got made a long time ago, and that's why that had to happen.
Well, so actually, the deal with Best Buy, like I'm going to point out, there were articles saying, oh, Oculus just decided they're going to ship these units to Best Buy. So we actually announced that at CES. We announced that we would be shipping limited quantities to retail. There were even stories written about it with headlines. And some of the outlets that wrote those stories then later wrote that Oculus reveals that they're shipping them. I'm like, you wrote an article about this. I was in the interview. And so like that's one of those things where like you look at, you're like, that's dumb. But then you realize, well, we obviously needed to do a better job of communicating that. And like that is probably one of the biggest stumbles we've had, is not being able to meet the demand, and we are catching up soon. We've been
Yeah,
ramping
you were
up
saying like
production.
July is right around the corner.
Right.
So
And
that's
the other
pretty
thing
close.
is, like not necessarily the Best Buy situation, but we had issues with a component shortage, and people saying, "Tell us what's going on. You gotta tell us." And the reality is that oftentimes what people really desperately want or think they want, like ultimate transparency and full explanations of exactly how things goes, that's actually not the right way to achieve the optimal outcome, which is let's work with this partner, let's get this all resolved, let's get manufacturing.
Right.
And it'd be interesting and cathartic to be like, I'm going to write an open letter explaining to everyone exactly what's going on.
Let's throw 9 people under the bus here that we then have to work with.
And it's like, and everyone will say, this is so great, we know what's going on. It's like, yeah, and guess what? Now you don't get your Rift for another few months because it's completely screwed everything up. And so that's an example where it's not that people are dumb, it's that just if they don't have access to all the information, sometimes it can be really easy to think that the thing you want is the right thing and not necessarily understanding the bigger picture of what's going on behind the scenes with the various different interests of all the different parties and trying to achieve the optimal outcome.
Yeah, and I can only imagine with something as crazy and new as shipping these headsets out, there's a lot of interesting problems to solve.
I mean, it is, but like I can't even attribute it to like just it's hard to ship headsets. Like this is true everywhere in the games industry, probably everywhere in business. I just don't know much about many other places in business. But like when I talk to game developers, it's many of the same stories.
I've heard parts.
I've heard stories about middleware providers that I'm like, that story's just like our component shortage from what I can tell. I really feel for those guys.
Yeah, we'll definitely privately have people to us kind of on the side throw some of their middleware or engine companies that they're working with under the bus. But obviously, they're never going to publicly get out there and say like, "Well, this decision we made a long time ago is what." Ultimately, the consumer kind of doesn't care and shouldn't have to, right? I mean, they just kind of want to know when things are going to be.
The buck
solved.
stops with you, and you have to take responsibility, even when that's not always the funnest thing to do.
Definitely not, but that's how it goes. All right, well, we're going to let you guys go. Thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you
Palmer,
for
Greg,
having
this
us.
has been fantastic, and we will return shortly with another batch of guests. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Hello and welcome back. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Day 1 of E3 continues. The show floor is over, but this is the new show floor. I'm joined by just as many guests as we could fit. We've got Lorne Lanning here with me. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great now that I'm here.
Yeah, welcome back.
Well,
Good-
thank you.
Good
It's
to
great
have you
to be
back.
here.
We've got from Hangar 13, we've got Hayden Blackman. How you doing?
Great.
And Bill Harms down there in the end. How are things?
Fantastic.
Awesome. In the back, we've got Hit Detection's own Jeff Green.
Hi, Jeff.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And we've got Alex Navarro. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to intro me or anything. It's cool. I'm just here.
It would just look weird if there was
Yeah.
only one person sitting in the back. So,
I'm literally a body.
yeah, quite literally.
Yeah.
The body. Anyway, so we're here. Another year of E3. Some stuff being shown off. Obviously, you guys are bringing the games. Mafia here at the show, huh?
That's right.
How does it feel getting that out there in front of people? Obviously the game's been announced and known for a while, but kind of being able to really get out there and show it. How's it been going?
It's been great. I mean, you said earlier it was one of your most emotional.
Yeah, I actually got a little emotional today at the booth, and it's like we had the jazz band playing,
Yeah.
and it's just we've been working on this for 3+ years now, roughly or thereabouts, and just seeing the booth, seeing all the people, the excitement of everybody lined up, and the jazz band. Yeah, it was this is hands down the highlight of my career so far,
Awesome.
which has been great.
Yeah, for me, I mean, again, I think we all probably can relate to this, but the team has been working kind of, almost in seclusion for so long, and obviously we announced at Gamescom, and we were able to show bits and pieces of the game, but to actually have a huge, extended portion of gameplay out there that the team worked so hard on, that to me, I think, has been really meaningful. So
Yeah,
it's been a great
and
show.
that just helps telling the story of the game and kind of like helping people understand like really what you're making. right?
Absolutely, yeah, and again, it's just the team's hard work being put front and center now is just for me is a big milestone. So.
Yeah, and now Lorne, you've brought plenty of games to to E3 over the years.
Well, we're bringing another one, but we weren't on the big floor. We were in a corner somewhere, just trying to, find a plug and show the occasional person that would walk by.
You just gotta,
it's much different.
got a
When I
laptop
hear
plugged
that, I
in.
hear, wow, they got a great publisher. I'm like, well, we're self-financing.
But
We got the, we'll work for game development.
how much of the control do you really want to give away to a publisher?
Well, that
anyway?
was always our problem, I guess.
Yeah.
We had some issues with that through the years, but
I've been there.
here we are.
Yeah.
We survived, and here we are.
Yeah.
But we're secretly showing something because we're ahead of where we thought we would be, which is really a first. That's awesome. It was like, wait a minute, it's
You say that's not how game development works.
Never,
You're supposed to be.
You're usually like totally nervous wreck. What you're showing, you hope it doesn't break, but it's shaky.
Yeah.
It's a junk with bubble gum and coat hangers holding your game together, and you're like, it doesn't break. You demo it, but you know how to avoid everything. But it actually was running, so we're like, hey guys, should we show this year? Like we weren't prepared, which is completely the opposite of how it always goes. Which is can't we wait? No, now's the time. So can't complain, but publicly we're really not out there yet with it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Now, Jeff Green.
Yes, sir.
In your days now as consulting and obviously in the press, how many E3 builds have you broken? Would you say how many times have you crashed a build at a trade show?
Oh, many.
Yeah.
And when I was at EA as an employee.
Those builds crashed themselves.
Right. Of course I did. Right. I crashed many builds. Many builds. Yeah. I played a bunch of games. Are we talking about games yet? Can we do
Sure.
that?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
We
You want to
can
talk
talk
about some
about, I want to talk about some video games.
Talk about some hits.
All right.
All right.
I detected a couple hits today.
Okay. What are you thinking here? What's
Actually, what I really liked was Titanfall 2.
Yeah. Same
Did
here.
it.
Yeah. It's,
Battlefield 1 looks amazing. It looks great, but I'm not convinced. Do kids even know that there was a World War I? I mean, they know there was a 2.
Oh yeah, 2 is the one that everyone's talking about.
But does anyone know what happened in 1?
There's a whole. There are
I
like
don't know
3
if-
TV channels devoted to World War II.
Right.
At any given time. 1. That's
They might be
that's on
surprised there was
shortwave
a
radio.
one.
You got to tune that.
Right. They might think it was like Leonard Part 6, where there was
Basically, yeah,
It
they
was not
started
1
at
through
2.
5. They
But I
started
think
at 6.
this could be the moment. Like, this could reintroduce World War I to a whole new generation. Like, those Kaiser helmets could be huge.
They could. They could replace
That could be-
fedoras as sort
yeah.
of like the thing.
Yes, we're getting way into the pointy helmets.
Totally.
Yeah, obviously.
Also, I was wondering because they didn't show it today when I saw it at EA Play. Are they going to have things like mustard gas and chemical weapons?
Yeah, apparently there are gas masks in that game, and yeah,
That's intense.
It's war.
The thing I want to do is fly around in a biplane.
Yeah.
And chuck grenades out because that's how they used to do bombing runs back then.
Yeah.
And just
Really?
just
It was
kinda-
grenades?
Yeah, they would just throw stuff out of the plane and hope it landed on something.
there's like I don't know. What do you got up here? I got 2 grenades and a brick. All right,
Yeah.
go down. We're doing this. Like, yeah,
It was the E3 build of war. It was just like you hoped it worked.
yeah, and invariably you crash the build.
Yeah, exactly.
You crash the build. Yeah, that's Titanfall 2 definitely stuck out to me as I really enjoyed the first game and. There's just so many, like, the grappling hook feels so good. We were talking about earlier, that grappling hook feels really good. Just the mode they're showing, I think, is really smart. And
Yes, it is. I think they kind of boned with Titanfall 1. It just like crashed. And I think it might have been the Xbox One's. The fact that it was only on that platform probably didn't help at the time.
Yeah, and that's this.
Never had that happen.
It's funny. We started a series where we're looking at old B-roll, where we're pulling, because we're being owned by the same company that owns GameSpot. Like there's the GameSpot tape library goes back to 2000, 2001. The site started in '96, but no one had tapes then. Yeah. And we found some PS2 munches. B-roll like that, and all that early tech stuff, and I had to sit there and go like, wait a minute, this isn't at all. This totally never came. Right, of course, because this was the game that eventually became the other thing.
I never told that story publicly how that footage got there. But if we want to take a minute and
Are you
share,
allowed to?
Yeah,
Please,
yeah.
I would love to hear.
So this is kind of is it? So there was, without naming names, there was publishers acquiring publishers, and you wound up with partners you didn't have any say in, and all of a sudden they're your partner, and then all of a sudden you find out they're cutting all their budgets, but they're a public company, so you're like, so we just got a partner we don't want, and they're cutting every budget that they say is above this much, and that's only about $7 million below ours, so we're pretty much on the chopping block. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. So I said, wow, well, how do we prevent that? And I was like, well, wait a minute, let's take all the assets. And at the time, you got to remember, PS2, Sony, if you had a dev kit, you had an agreement that said you couldn't release any footage on a PS2. So you couldn't even tell the public what you were doing. And I was like, but I came from aerospace, where we used to do visualization on Star Wars projects, stuff like that. And I was like, we can visualize the footage, and then we can poison pill the budget cut. So we produced all this footage. We said, this is visualization of the PS2 game, but no one else was able to release PS2 footage. So everyone's like, look at all this PS footage. And I saw Dave Perry do it before with Earthworm Jim and then, you know, the new systems coming out. I was like, wow, he totally rode that. So I'm like taking surfing lessons. And I'm like, okay, this is how we're gonna. So we produced this whole CD of QuickTimes that was basically all the assets that we were building for it, but we pre-rendered it all in 3D Studio Max, and we called it visualizations of the PS2. The next thing, like, Phil Harris is going, what are they doing? You're not allowed to show this footage. What footage? This isn't off of PS2. This is visualization. It says it clearly like that. What is that? And everyone starts freaking out. But the public company, I mean, I'm talking, we got Newsweek, we got everywhere with that footage, right?
Yeah.
And then, now cut our budget and see what it does to your public stock value. That's where that footage came from.
Nice.
And that's the story I'm admitting it today.
and I remember at the time that was like I mean, you know, obviously not real, but you know, that was kind of, we got a hold of that and was like, this is like the first PlayStation 2 footage.
Well,
like outside of like some duck demo, you know.
No one was allowed to show it,
yeah.
right? So we it was really kind of slimy what we did, but we did it. We survived.
Hey, I mean, at some point you got to do what it takes,
honest.
right?
It was honest. But you know, we didn't get our budget cut, and we were hearing across the countries of the different developers that were showing up with padlocks on the studio door.
Oh yeah.
So you know, there was a lot of those are just unwritten stories, but we've heard them all. You know.
Yeah,
we all have.
yeah. You were saying.
So that's where that footage came from.
Nice. That
why it
is
looks
super
nothing,
fascinating.
That's why it looks
you
nothing like the game.
Yeah. That's and you mentioned that you did spend some time with Lucas.
Yeah,
doing stuff like that. You know, Lucas seemed like a studio that was always up and down. What period of?
I was there for like 13 years.
Okay.
So yeah, right through like when I first started, they were just transitioning into console. You know, and kind of had been obviously a PC company for so long and really focused on adventure games, and we're just now starting to realize the value of Star Wars and Star Wars games, and then the importance of the consoles. So I was there through that whole transition, and then, you know, obviously onto the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and whatnot. Yeah. So, but yeah, and you know, I think it's like anything. There were lots of ups and downs. I think in the time I was there was probably more ups than downs, but it was. I mean, we never had to do anything like that.
Yeah, that just seemed like a really exciting time for that studio. For
yeah,
sure.
well, you know what's so interesting is it was like every 2 or 3 years it was the new exciting time, right? Like, and it's just, and again, because it's cyclical and you go through these changes, right? So I felt like, you know, my last couple years there, Jim Ward came in as president at one point, and that was an incredibly exciting time. And we had Battlefront, and we were working on Force Unleashed and some other stuff. But that wasn't the only exciting time, and it wasn't, you know, there was times before that and there were times after that, I'm sure, right? So it was just, like you said, it's very cyclical. So
yeah. Definitely.
So did you have to be quiet on the ranch?
Do we have to be quiet on the ranch? I don't know, quiet's the right word. There are definitely areas that, you know, it's really, it's a beautiful place, right? And it's like, I always just say it's deceptively idyllic, right? Because everybody was working really hard up there, right? And we weren't actually on Skywalker Ranch. We were down the road, and then we were at the Presidio.
I was gonna say, was it in like the Marin Tech Center, like out in that spot where Lucas used to be around there?
Yeah, we're off of Lucas Valley Road, which you know, was down the road from Skywalker Ranch. But you know, like Lucasfilm licensing was up at the ranch, and then at one point the animation team was up at the ranch, Lucasfilm Animation. But you go up there and it's beautiful, right? And it's like deceptively idyllic because, you know, once you start talking to people there, they're all, you know, working incredibly hard, right?
Right. But like, look at this beautiful place. No, I don't have time to.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but it was, I mean, the window I was there was a really great time to be there because we were growing the, you know, the kind of games business, you know. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And now, you know, staying in the area in Novato. Doing Hangar 13. So this will be Hangar 13's first game, right?
That's right.
Like some of the people. How much of the team was there previously? Because I'm trying to think like games that came out of Novato. Was like the Bureau came out of there?
So we had. It's interesting. So when I was hired to found Hangar 13, what became Hangar 13, and wasn't really sure what I was going to work on. We knew that, I knew that I wanted to work on open world games and I wanted to work with proprietary tech, just because that's what I know. That's what the proprietary tech side of it is what I'm most comfortable with. And then after a couple months, we started having the conversation about the Mafia franchise. So when we built Hangar 13, we brought over a bunch of people from the Czech Republic who had worked on Mafia 2. Yeah. So that was a good infusion of folks. And then there were some folks that actually, like Bill, who actually had been working with the brand for a while, and they were kicking around other ideas for, Mafia 3. So we brought Bill on board. And then after the Bureau shipped, a handful of folks from 2K Marin came on board. So we grew. And then when LucasArts, kind of folded, because I had worked there for so long, I knew so many people. We went in and we invited invite me. I don't know if that's the right word. Hey,
what are you guys doing?
Here you go. Look in the mail. There's going to be an invite. Come join us. But
RSVP, please. We just want to get a good count.
We were able to bring over some folks from LucasArts too. So we actually had these it was a really interesting time because we had these contingent of Czech guys, contingent of Bureau kind of 2K Marin folks, and then Lucas folks, and then new hires or folks that hadn't necessarily worked in it, all colliding at once, and it's like 3 different cultures, and then these one-offs. Sorry, I don't know how else to say it. All hitting at once, and we went from a relatively small team to a large team almost overnight. So that was. It was challenging, but I think it worked. It worked out. It worked to our advantage.
Yeah, I think it worked out great. I think when I started, there was maybe 20 people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Something like that. We took up this tiny little corner.
You're just running, had a quiet Mafia corner where you're like, one of these days we're gonna get.
There's other people in our area who weren't affiliated with us, and then like Hayden said, all of a sudden, just over time, in a very short amount of time, suddenly grew out. But I think the culture and everything, it's great. I think we all really gelled and.
Well, it helped because we had the project, right? To rally around. We had that one thing, the Mafia.
And people with different experience. I mean, obviously, the Czech guys, coming in with Mafia 2 stuff. But this seems like a very different game from Mafia 2.
It is and it isn't. And again, some of this is my experience working on Lucas. But one of the things I did when I came in was, how do I put together franchise pillars for the franchise that are media agnostic? So, if we were going to, not saying that we would necessarily, but if we were going to do a comic book or a novel or a movie with the brand, what would it be? So, and there are things like, again, the strong sense of time and place, the kind of idea of a gifted anti-hero, and that are consistent across all the Mafia games. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure we nailed that, and the strong story, obviously, that's what the game was known for. But then everybody agreed, we need to make it more of an open world game. We need to make it more of a, less of just driving from mission to mission and more, exploration.
To keep costs low.
Yeah, that was exactly it. Yeah, we do joke about that. We could have done anything more ambitious, probably. An open world game for our first title. But,
Now, Jeff, you're a gifted anti-hero yourself.
I am.
Trial by napalm.
How's the show go for you? Is it kind of just?
It's awesome.
Do you have clients that you're working with that you then need to see their games here, or?
Sometimes it's a matter because sometimes we've helped them, figure out what they should show at E3 or not.
Yeah.
So in those cases, we see if our advice actually was good or not. Hopefully it is.
Go walk around and go,
whoa, that was wrong. Fucked that one up. Sorry.
No, you guys misread the email. We didn't say this at all.
Actually, we said don't.
This is all wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
But for the most part, usually we just get to check stuff out. So it's awesome because there's no responsibility at all. Like you guys,
No, I've
it's like a dream job.
It's get that job. It's not like you guys because you have to do so much.
All right.
Because being in the press, I remember E3 was very, very stressful.
Yes.
Right? You got a lot to do, a lot to cover all the time, and it's impossible to see everything. I remember every day would feel like, how is the day over already? Because I've seen 2 games. How'd that happen? I needed to see 20 games.
Right.
So now I can just see 2 games, and it doesn't matter. Because I don't have to do anything with the lack of information
that
I don't have.
The awesome transition away from we have to cover every single game to what we're doing,
right?
Because it lets me actually see two or 3 games in a day.
Now the downside is I don't have a press pass anymore. So if I do want to see something, I have to wait in line like a civilian.
Yeah,
So,
welcome to the
and
rest.
Now,
you,
Bill,
you can't play the I'm Lorne Lanning card?
Not at all.
Don't you know who
show
I
that
am?
card.
Who I am.
You're not getting in if you show that card.
just tell him you're starting a blog. It works every time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what all the kids
If I had a
do.
YouTube channel. You know.
But it's also interesting that even if we didn't like tell them what to show at E3, it's also, you know, a lot of times it's everybody's first look at a game that we've seen for a while, and we, you know, we may have said we think this is promising, or we think people are going to go crazy over this, or maybe you shouldn't show it yet. So it's always interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not predictable, and it's not predictable.
So wait a minute, you're saying as someone who is officially supposed to predict things, that
Yes,
it's not predictable.
All
right.
Well, you know, the number of times that we've had to, you know, we often get asked to provide a Metacritic, a predictive Metacritic score.
Right, yeah.
And sometimes we'll see these games like when they're basically just like white boxes, you know, and they still want to score.
So you go, 85. I don't know.
Right,
85.
like, we
I
can
gotta
give
go.
you a number.
Yeah.
We can if you really want it, but this number is really bullshit.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Well, as long as you say that to them, they can't
Well,
hold
we
it
do.
against you.
I mean, other times we can make a sort of informed decision. You know, there's other, you know, examples.
or concepts, and you know the games that they're using as comps. And
Right,
all that
or
stuff.
there's, you know, it's a franchise, so there's been past versions or whatever. So we can, and you know, we do have a pretty good record for generally nailing it, but every once in a while we're just being asked to put a number on something that's impossible, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I guess 78.
Yeah, yeah.
78. That sounds good.
That's how I write all my reviews.
Right,
Exactly. So
Right.
that's where it's got me this far. So whatever. Now, Bill, you also you know, spent some time in the press.
I did.
And we worked together for, was it about 2 weeks?
Yes.
As part of the CNET,
CNET
ZDNet,
GameSpot
yeah,
merger.
the Game Center GameSpot
and
thing.
then we were expelled.
Yeah, that was a weird day. They
was a
said
very weird
they
day.
call us all into an office, and I was convinced that we were the ones getting out.
So what's funny is I was actually late that day.
Oh wow.
We had the staff meeting, and I wasn't going to go. And then I was like, well, you know, I'm the executive editor. I should probably go. And so I walked down there, and I see some people come out, and they were laughing. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this meeting's about, but people were laughing. And then I go in there, and Michael Brown, who was my boss,
Right. Yeah.
goes, well, that's it. They pulled the plug. We're done. And I
Yeah.
was just like, okay.
okay.
And we're here till through the end of Friday. And then I think we had pizza with you guys that day.
Yeah, I think that was I think.
Like, I literally think like we had the most awkward pizza party like in the history of the world.
Well, I mean, I feel like that was such an awkward thing anyway, because it was like, okay, here are these two sites that have kind of not, you know, like been rivals in a lot of
sure.
ways for a good
Yeah.
long time, and now it's like we're being smashed into the same space, and it was just like, all right, I don't, okay, I don't know. Like I knew Ricardo.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd seen him out at events and stuff like that. Because I was only on console stuff,
Right.
and most of you guys were covering the PC beat. So
Well, and you knew Glenn too.
well, okay, yeah, I know. We know Glenn.
Yeah. In fact, I wrote for your site for a little bit as a
did.
freelancer. I wrote through Glenn, and I wrote through
Yeah.
Brett Rector.
Yeah, so Brett had been previously, because this was in that building on Townsend Street,
Right.
in San Francisco, which I believe is cursed.
Well, Zynga's in there now,
they
so
should
you know.
just tear it down and salt the
never
earth.
find-
Sega was in there before,
Yeah.
and they're doing.
Could you ever find your way from the parking lot to the office in that building ever?
It was on the roof, and you had to go down.
Yeah.
And then remember the elevators? You had to like go over here and then walk
Yeah.
around because it was like some weird pseudo mall thing.
Yeah.
But Brett worked for
the Zynga
Insight.
building?
Yeah.
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 Oh,
650
shit, that
Townsend.
building sucks.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a nightmare.
But Brett worked for Insight.
Oh, so he moved downstairs
So
with
he
Sven
was
and
there,
those
and
guys.
he got
Okay.
laid off from there, and he came back. So when we were told that we were laid off, he literally went back to his desk, threw all of his shit in a box, and said, good. He just said, I can't remember what he said, but it was like this sentence of profanities, and walked out.
Yeah. And that was it.
And
Yeah.
that was it.
And then went on to Star Wars Insider.
Yes.
And
Right.
then I hired him. This is how small the industry is. I hired
yeah,
him
basically.
at LucasArts as an assistant producer later.
And then the next time I saw him was at a Comic-Con where you guys had like this life-size X-Wing on the show floor. And he was there like running around. He's like, "Oh, this is great." So I was like, "Okay," but I love Brett. He's a big hockey guy, so we'd always wear his hockey jerseys, and we'd go to lunch
Yeah.
in downtown San Francisco. And there's a hockey player. I think his name is actually pronounced like Satan.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
spelled
Yes.
Satan.
I have that
So
jersey.
like, yeah. So we're like walking around, I'm walking around with this dude with like Satan on the back of his back.
Is that how he spells it?
Yes.
Yeah, that is how it's spelled.
That's kind of
Yeah.
an unfortunate name to
I
grow up
think
with.
I might still have one of the CNET Game Center hockey jerseys.
So
I have
this
one-
is-
I have
this-
one as
This
well.
is crazy.
Yeah.
My wife and I recently moved about, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and I found mine. And it's like, oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
is like from what? That was 2000? Oh no,
Yeah,
it's February
99, maybe
99,
2000.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was
somewhere
like,
around
holy
there.
crap, and it's still in perfect shape.
Yeah, so I, because I had known Glenn for years at that point, when CNET bought ZDNet,
Right.
I went over to his house and got his hockey jersey and wore it to work that day. Because I'd heard about the announcement before I even got into the
Right.
office, so I'm like, oh shit. So I went and got it, and it just showed up wearing the Game Center jersey. Just going like, what's up, guys? Let's do this!
So the best part of that is I don't remember his name, where we had this intern on the day that it was announced that CNET was buying ZDNet. He was going on all these game sites and going on the message boards and saying, well, I don't know what the future of ZDNet is. Maybe liquidation? So I had to spend that entire day like emailing everybody and saying, this is our intern. Like, please take this stuff down.
Yeah.
And ban him. So, so that he can never
We're
post
currently
again.
beating him, as you do with an intern.
Exactly.
Crushing him into dust. God. Man, wow.
Millennial story.
Yeah.
So and then after that, I went back to PC Gamer because before Game Center, I worked at PC Gamer for a couple of years, and then I went back to PC Gamer. So then we were rivals.
We were
so,
rivals.
Yeah, there was a lot of rivalry going on. And I worked there for a couple of years, and then Rick Goodman, who had a company, Stainless Steel Studios,
Right.
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
Empire Earth. He knew because I also wrote comic books on the side, and he knew I knew strategy games because we were buddies from me covering his games. And he just called me one day and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about moving into game development?" And I said, "Yes, I have." And that was over 12 years ago,
Yeah.
roughly thereabouts. So yeah,
And now, just this huge project now.
yeah, it's crazy. Now I'm with this guy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, that has to be like, just exciting, like, especially like being in on the ground floor of this smaller team and watching this thing blow up. Like, how many of the ideas from those early days do you see manifest in it now? I mean, obviously games are iterated, things change, but how many through lines do you see?
He's laughing because I joke, like, sometimes I go on my hard drive and, like, open up old files just so I make myself cry, just because, like,
I spent months on this.
story version 18. That was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Like Hayden said, I think one of the things is, like, since we knew our project, like, it was, even though we have all these people coming in, it's very easy to rally behind it and say, hey, this is the game we're making.
We had a box like that.
Yeah.
Boxes are always good. I think. We had some parameters.
And, being as an old press guy, now being on the other side and going, holy shit, like,
You realize what an asshole you were?
oh, yeah. No, totally.
We're really good at that shit.
Well, my specialty was not being an asshole, it was the poker face. So I was the
You
poker
still have that.
Yeah, I do. Or
It's the walking out of a demo going,
or as some people call it, resting bitch face. But yeah, it's like the flip side because you go around and you on the press side and you
Karma,
see
man.
I deserve it. But you go
I hate
like
you
on
guys. No, the poker face. You're like, shit, he hates it, man.
Oh,
He hates
well,
it.
so-
We've been
so-
killing ourselves.
It shows a lot of promise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Was my thing was it looks promising.
Yes.
That was my it looks promising.
Yeah.
because that implies like if you do enough work to this, it'll get there.
Yeah, mate.
But I know this is your
Also-
submission build,
From
so
now on, now that's what
Next
you're
time you send me a scene or whatever, I'm gonna be like, it looks promising.
But I used to get pissed when the developers would ask, "What do you think?" right away.
Right.
I felt too like on the spot. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to tell you what I think yet. Like, let me think
Yeah,
about
well,
it.
that's the thing is like the developers live with it for a long time, and
Right.
I've literally just been introduced to it and seen 5 to 10 minutes of it.
Right.
And I'm the kind of I know some people are just like, but I'm the kind of guy that likes to process it a little bit.
sure.
Right.
So
yeah.
and think about it. So yes, it looks promising.
Well, and it's also
the other
sort
one
of an
could be good.
Well, it's an impossible question too, because you don't want to say like, well, it looks like shit,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't, even if you think that, like you can't say that. So it's just a rough question. I get why you would ask that question.
I've definitely gotten, and I think it's something that's changed, as I think that our end of things has become a little unglued, and it's a little weird out here on this end of things with just the way the traditional press is going,
Right.
and kind of it feels like the kind of YouTube, Twitch stuff is rising up to crush the websites the same way the websites rose up to try to crush print.
What do you mean tried to?
Okay, fine. Crush print.
Yeah.
They're
still
out in
have it?
Minnesota still doing something.
There's still a magazine.
They're still and so, like we're kind of straddling this weird line between those two things in a lot of ways with, as much video stuff as we do now. And it's become less about here's what the publication thinks about this, and it's become a lot more about like, well, here's what I think about it. And it's given me a lot more leeway in situations like that to say things like, this game is 100% not for me. I think that there are interesting things you're doing, but, like I wish you the best of luck, but like you're still working on this turn-based strategy game that you're working on a game that is very much like Dark Souls, which I just can't really connect with, and that's been weirdly liberating to be able to kind of say that sort of stuff, because the fear on the press end, at least with the way it went with me, was you would get asked that question a lot by PR coming out of a demo,
Yes.
and especially EA was really good at it for a really long time of like showing you the games and then just having some publicist kind of standing next to you and go, so what'd you think of this? What'd you think of this? And literally like writing all that down and storing it away somewhere. And at some point it was like, I'm not a consultant. Like I'm not here to do that. Like it's not, I'm here to kind of report on stuff, and I don't want kind of my flip off the cuff thing then weighing in that heavily on a game that I've seen
you have
for
no
9
idea.
minutes or
Those
something.
notes went to a dev team that's like,
Yeah,
what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly. They go like, all these press guys are assholes. They don't get it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's a situation that I hate being put in. Even when I like a game, it leads to me going like, and then walking out of the room and going like, that looks fucking great to whoever I saw the demo with or something like that. And yeah, so a little bit of that has changed to where I feel a little more comfortable saying that, because it's less about representing a publication and trying to be all things to all people the way that the big websites were, and being a little more focused on us as people. Which
It's interesting though the way it's changed, because like I feel like the question of like, did you like it from a developer standpoint? At least 10 years ago came from we're working in isolation,
Right.
and nobody else is seeing the game, and we know that at least journalists are gamers, right? And that they'll be able to provide some kind of salient input that maybe a PR guy or somebody else from the organization doesn't have that same viewpoint, right?
Right.
And now I think it's maybe a little bit different, because we do, as the industry's matured, now we do get a lot of user tests and we get a lot of that feedback earlier. But I can remember, again, 10 years ago, just being desperate for any kind of not even like positive validation, but just like, just tell me what you think, because we've been working
on the right track?
and we don't know. Like, you lose sight of like, is it even good anymore, because you're in the weeds on it.
Do you
right?
worry these days that because there's so much feedback about unreleased games coming in at all times, do you worry, at some point does it feel like you're just focus testing everything to death? Even if you're not running a focus test, like if you're looking at all that feedback on what you're working on, do you worry that it can poison the process?
Yeah, it depends on when you do it, right? Like I think, I'm not a big fan of doing, focus tests early in the process, like, this concept, right? Does this concept resonate? Because nobody knows. Or like, does this feature set resonate? And like, people don't. You don't know what features you want sometimes and you can't articulate it necessarily as a consumer what features you think are missing until they're there, right? Like, or whether or not a feature is going to work when you're looking at like a one sheet. So, I think that part of the process I'm not really supportive of. But later in the process, like even where we're at right now, right? Like, as we're in kind of the final stages, obviously, to release in October. But so we're looking at how many bugs can we fix, and trying to get as many meaningful bugs done. But we're also still doing user testing to tune and stuff, and that's like absolutely invaluable. And I don't think it poisons the process at that point, because we already kind of know what we are, and we know what the strengths and weaknesses of the game are, and now it's just about, okay, how do we capitalize on the things that we know are really strong, and how do we improve upon the things that, like, on the tuning side or whatever, that we know need that help. But we need that feedback because we're so close to it. We can't be objective, right? So we need those. We need people to come in and sit down and play the game. So I really value it from that standpoint. But it's all about the timing of when you do it and how wide you go and who gets that information. And you don't want to send the team into a tailspin if something comes back negative, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or the converse, right? You don't want, if something comes back really positive, you want to be like, oh, okay, well, our job's done, right? It's like, well, no, we still, there's probably still stuff we can work on.
Or you get people that are just taking that data and just using it to like try to win arguments about a game, I imagine.
Yeah.
And that's probably where you come in a lot, where like a team will have an argument and you step in and go like, no, it's console MOBA. Make a console MOBA.
Yeah, that is.
You just come in and say that every time, right?
We actually won't know what the conflict is. In fact, we may not even know there is a conflict. We'll maybe figure it out while we're there.
Yeah.
The publisher will bring us in, and they'll, they don't tip their hands at all, which is good. They'll say, "Come and look at this game," and then when we're playing it, we'll play it for a few days. And it's usually on that last day, then someone on the marketing, whatever, will call us in and say, "So what do you think?" And then it becomes cool, like, okay, they were trying to get something specific out of us.
Right.
And often it will turn out that maybe we actually do agree with them, right? And so they will use that to sort of buffer the argument. But other times it's the other, goes the other way, and we think the developers were right. So yeah, sometimes we are settling conflicts without realizing that that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And how often do you ever get into just like recommending features of like, this would, because I hear that a lot, that, that there are people like, oh, if this only had this one feature, because this is very now and very with it, like this, it has to have PvP, it has to have this.
How many grappling hooks have you suggested recently?
Right, because we're seeing a lot of them out there, and it's awesome. Like, I'm with you. If you want my consultant's opinion, PayPal me $9 and I will write back, put a grappling hook in your game.
We just have a bullet we put in every report.
But has there been, obviously like trends happen in this business? And,
sure. Well, like one trend that has come up a lot, over the last 2 years that I've been there is when they ask us about PR and marketing is, they ask us a lot more about Twitch and YouTube than they did before. And a lot of our recommendations are around that, as opposed to where it would have been about the press.
Right.
How do we reach the YouTube guys? How do we get Twitch to stream it?
You pay them. Like it's literally,
they have
just give them 10 grand and they do the 20 grand for some of them, and that's the answer.
That's
Again,
the answer.
PayPal me $9 for this consultant's fee. Now, Lorne, you seem like the sort of guy that would want to go against almost all of that.
But no, I'm the kind of guy that wants to learn more about that, and be smarter and less pained along the way. But I think it all kind of goes to all the points being made. But at the same time, if there's an inherent vision of something original, you're not going to get a focus test that says this is what we want. Right? They don't know yet. So, and I think what happens is it's the same thing in Hollywood. The bigger the budget, and then now you basically, it's real simple, right? The bigger the budget, you got public companies involved, you got shareholder concerns, you got all kinds of different divisions trying to ensure the safe bet. So what is that? Those are summer blockbuster, tentpole, mediocre films, right? And we see it all the time in games, the same thing. And what's happening? A lot of times they go, you are going to be in charge of the vision of this, branded license, right? And someone goes like, I'm going to be? Yeah. And now all of this upper echelon is going to tell you how to make it great, And so we wind up with a lot of things that they don't have the heart that of someone who would have been like at different times. I find myself like, look, I get none of you believe in it, right? But it's going to work. But we got to at least get to here before these things can prove it. And the reason you don't believe it is because you never played it before, and I can get that. So you got to, no matter what, if it's a big brand you're working with, the bigger the budget it is. I mean, it's easier for us today because we're indie.
Right.
We're not going to lose anyone else's money. We'll go broke. But so you're responsible for your own decisions. And at the same time, that actually made me, I think, better in terms of sticking less to your own vision specifically and listening more. And in the beginning, you're borrowing money. You're really out on a limb. You got to be right, and you're being told, look, you got to kill it this time. You got to kill this E3, and you're like, oh God, it's not running, or whatever it is. And so a lot of things happen. We've seen it blow back on a lot of designers. I totally understand the spots they were in. They said the wrong thing, don't follow through. They get crucified. It happens. But you got to have
whether it's a team, Pixar had a great saying. Ed Catmull, who I think was a cultural genius in terms of keeping cultures together and figuring out how to make, in his word, art a team sport. And that's really games too, is that it's less about an individual director, but there has to be a vision. And if that vision is retained by a committee, it's got to be a really good, small committee. And a few weak eggs there, like what happens all the time, you get an acquisition, just to ramble a bit on it, right? You get an acquisition, and then the buying company, depending on how wise they are or not, sends in a mediocre lackey to now be in charge of that whole company that they just bought. And now that guy, he's terrified to make a decision, so now he wants a consensus. So you get the camel out of the committee design, right? Even though the people there be like, look, man, I'm telling you what to do. Okay, I got these awards on the wall, you don't, but you're gonna listen to them now because you don't know the decision to make, and that's the game we're gonna deliver. Thank you very much for wasting 3-4 years of my life.
There are a lot of people out there that are.
You don't sound bitter at all.
No. And I'm the guy who always had creative freedom, which is kind of like, well, that can bite you in the butt too.
You end up in a position where there are a lot of people in those decision-making roles that are really just afraid to lose their job.
Yeah, it's an expensive world. I can understand.
I feel like, totally, I get it.
But there's a fear. The more money there is, the more fear there is around a project. The project comes to the show and gets promoted as though, look at how excited we are. But half of it is, look how terrified we are. You better get the right reception. We'll fund the stuff, and there's all different spectrums of how big it gets. But basically, the more money's involved, then the more fear is going to, I think, we'd agree, the more fear orbits around the project, which means the core group, like you talk about 4 teams coming together, right? What a cultural, orgy that was, right? It's like, and you can imagine how tense that can be because there's lots of different fears that will emerge, egos that will emerge. But when you can synergize a vision and you have a few people who are like, look, we, no matter what the bank or what this, we have to agree that we're going to make the decisions based on what's best for the player, right? At the end of the day. And we're going to hear all these voices, but we're going to have to sift through and really try and figure out what's reactionary, what's overreactionary, what's on, what should we listen to, where do we need to be smarter, how close are we to it, and how little do we actually know about our own game now? Because to their points, you're way too close. Which is, these are all common. How do you work on some 12 hours a day? 6 days a week, year after year.
Especially if it comes together right at the end.
And have clarity, and it doesn't work most of the project, is most of the cases.
But it seems like Hangar 13 is a different kind of studio from hearing about it.
I hope so.
I guess,
again, part of it is, so part of it's 2K, right? Like when I decided to join 2K, I really wanted to go to a place that made games that I like to play. And that had a string of high quality titles, right? So at the time, there was Borderlands, BioShock, and these other titles that I was really, a huge fan of. So
and even to just around that time, like even to just some riskier, like a Spec Ops: The Line, and some fascinating stuff. You're
completely.
like, okay, this is something that like most big publishers you wouldn't think would even.
Well, right.
Do
you look at Borderlands, right? Borderlands is like that's not a risky title, right? Like that. I mean, between the art style and the fact that 4-player co-op and all that, like there was a risk there, which was exciting to me, and that was one of the things that drew me there. So I think part of it's 2K as a publisher, has given us, I think, Mike, keep losing it, has given us a lot of freedom. But at the end of the day, I always feel like I have the weight of the company at my back instead of the weight of the company on top of me, which is, I don't think is always the case in the industry. So it's not that they're not pushing, because they are, right? And it is a big project, and it's obviously we want it to do well, and so you feel, but it feels like everybody's pushing the same direction. And I think for me, the thing that has kept me really going is the fact that even though we have disagreements sometimes, right, and not everybody. We can disagree about what we need to do to make the game great, but at the end of the day, everybody is focused on not what was my idea that won, it was how do we make the game great. So that to me, I think, is what's really valuable. And then again, I think because we had those crush of culture, and again, not just like game development cultures, but like world cultures, right? And understanding that those things were all kind of colliding at once, and that the way that things worked at LucasArts was different than the way they worked at, on the Bureau, which was different than the way it worked at 2K Czech, and different than the way I wanted to work, and different than the way some of the guys we hired worked. We had to very quickly say, this is who we are and this is what game we're building. Otherwise, it would have all fallen apart, right? Because we've got everybody pulling in different directions.
Right.
So I think almost like, and again, I was like deer in the headlights, to be honest, right? Like, but we had to rally the team around that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have survived the first 3 or 4 months together, right?
Yeah.
Because it was, slamming all these people together.
And now you're at E3 showing a game that looks promising. No, it's talking to the people that have seen it. It sounds like you guys are on the right. See, now I can't even say anything actually positive, but that sounds like a dick. We're gonna wrap it up. Bill, Hayden, Lorne, Jeff, Alex, thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Jeff.
much for coming by. Let's do this again next year.
Right on.
This is awesome.
Yeah, good to see you. We'll be back. We got more guests coming up. Stay tuned. The evening rages on. The darkness grows. Originally outside, now it lives in here. And you're here with me as Giant Bomb's E3 coverage continues.
Flee the building.
We're joined by members of the Square Enix family, and Brad and Dan, who we're proud to announce have joined us. Square Enix.
Yeah.
Oui, oui.
And me apparently as well.
No.
Yeah, no, well, yes. And it's part. I don't know how the corporate roll-up happens from IO Interactive into the parent company. Okay, let's get an org chart going here. Can we get
Yes, absolute minimum, yes.
Torben from IO Interactive is here. We've got Etienne, who's working on Deus Ex Go, and Jen, also of Square Enix Montreal.
Correct.
How are you all doing?
Good. It's been a very interesting E3 so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think? Etienne, you're showing a mobile game here. Like, 'cause sometimes it seems like the traditional kind of game industry will overlook mobile games a lot. Obviously, the Go franchise has been really big. But is it hard sometimes to show a mobile game, even one as high profile as Deus Ex Go, in an environment where you've got these gigantic billion-dollar budget games and stuff?
Well, there's that for sure. Like, people tend to overlook some mobile games, but I think at heart, what we make are like great games, and people have come to recognize that over the different titles that we did.
Yeah.
So we have bought some credits for ourselves to show that even though we're making a mobile game, it's not going to be like a free-to-play, like I don't know, like a transaction fest or anything.
Sure,
It's like
yeah.
quality game at first. It's on mobile because we want to have like great games on the platform, which means like we want to be the best game on mobile is not always the same thing as the best game on the console, right? And we really want to hit that spot. So I think we've bought some credits for
You're
ourselves.
not building some hat factory like this Dota stuff.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
But what if you
I mean,
were? Well, I guess anyone would love to actually have built Dota in some weird way.
yeah, Dota is basically the best game.
It's
So
very-
we don't have to go in that direction for making games. It's already over,
Yeah.
right? Some
Clock
other
is
companies
ticking.
are trying,
Oh, sure.
but
yeah.
it's not working.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's I only bring that up because Brad mentioned before the show that perhaps that you and he had played some
Yeah,
Dota
we
together.
completely trashed them repeatedly, I think.
Play is an interesting choice of words.
People don't play Dota; they live it, Brad. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And then a very snide Christmas card shows up from Montreal a few months later.
I'm sorry, I was behind that.
That's really quite untoward.
We barely wished you a Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Very polite. Season's greetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Season's greetings.
Torben, responsible for Hitman, which is just. I remember prior to release, there was some uneasiness around. There was like some late changes. There was like, this is going to be this, or it's going to be episodic, and this way. But man, it seems like that thing has just caught fire.
It's a lot of fun. I've caught fire in the good way, right?
Yeah, yes, definitely.
I mean,
yeah.
the good
Sorry,
kind of
I don't
running,
mean
the
game
good kind of
development
screaming.
fire, caught fire.
Yes,
Yeah.
the good kind of running and screaming.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. It's just been, like the episodic nature of it just seems to be just tapping into Hitman in a way that I don't know that anyone expected. Was that something that inside IO you're like, actually, as we make this episodic, this is going to make people want to replay these missions? Was that a big part of it, or is it just?
I mean,
get the marketing nonsense out of the way first. I mean, no, we set out to do this, right? From the beginning, we looked at Absolution. We looked at the stuff that was weird and busted that we couldn't fix. Scoring, bit iffy. The economy, completely busted. The disguise system, not very good at all. And we fixed what we could, and there were so many things that we couldn't fix because, I mean, shipping a game like Absolution is like packing to go on a really, really long trip, he said, losing his headphone again. So imagine you've got your trunk and you're putting your stuff in it, you're filling it up and you're filling it up and you're filling it up, everything's in there. And then you get your friend to sit on it so you can close the lid and you never touch it again because it will fucking explode if you open it, right? And that was kind of the state of Absolution. It was fine, it was packed, but if we tried to fix anything in the trunk, it would just, and you would have your luggage everywhere. So building the new game, we thought about, well, how could we actually be able to improve things or create new experiences or look at an elusive target and then 2 elusive targets later actually completely attack all the strategies that people were using. So episodic was like a really nice match into that. Maybe our communication wasn't great at the beginning, but it was a thing we wanted to do, and it's super awesome that people are really embracing it and having so much fun with it.
Speaking of elusive targets.
Yes, I'm sorry.
What's the big idea of putting out an elusive target in the middle of E3?
Jason's got a PS4 here.
That's true.
Jason's got his PS4.
Okay.
We can do it.
Okay.
Fire it up.
hotel room.
I'll coach you through it.
Ooh.
Okay, that's my
We
job,
don't have
actually.
Dan's his coach.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Working out
I'm
great. Those guys are really nailing
Yes,
it.
He's
completing the
I've heard something about that.
Sometimes I think that maybe they should start playing it on all 3 platforms just so they can get more shots at the target. But we'll see if it sinks to that depth.
Is the like the tempo of that stuff going to ramp up? It seems like because they were coming like kind of once every 2 weeks, so now there was one last week and now one this week, and
well, I could be again super snide and say, well, they're elusive, so nobody knows. But the point is that we're trying to keep like a weekly cadence of releases. So this could be elusive targets every week, maybe not every week. It could be escalations, but the whole idea is that we've got these big beats, which are the new episodes, and we've actually got one coming out in July, which is kind of the mid-season episode where we put out 2 new missions, 2 new locations. But the whole idea is that for the length of the season, and maybe a little bit afterwards, it's all Hitman, right? So whenever you want to, you can go back to this game and play some more Hitman.
Yeah. And it seems like that just kind of games as a service thing is increasingly important across everything, right? Like it just seems like across the, Deus Ex with the breach mode and, like just adding that sort of stuff to games is like really big now, right?
No, because you want the game experiences to be much more, not accessible but open-ended. Because you don't just want to purchase one or like play one game experience that's very finite and then just drop it and move on. And that's kind of, for us, it's funny because I'm bridging towards our own challenges with the Go games is we would release this super carefully crafted package that our team of 6 had spent 8 months building levels for, and then 4 hours later people were like, we loved it, we just burned through it, can we have more? And then we're just crying in a corner like, we just finished, can we have like 5 more minutes? And then the funny thing with DX Go that we just announced last week is we're tackling this challenge by bringing another layer, not a layer, but expanding the game experience by allowing people to make their own puzzles and challenges. And that's going to be really fun because there's already a dynamic at the office where we're challenging each other at, I'm sure you cannot beat that level under 37 steps or something. And then we lost an entire afternoon.
It's actually
we have very unproductive days sometimes, especially when you guys play
It's the best kind of
Dota.
unproductive days because you do that and then you realize there's actually value in that. Then people create their levels and bet basically against each other that you're not going to be able to do more than like less than 32 steps. And then the other guy plays your level and sends you back like 27 steps. And like, how did he do that? And you create that loop of like trying to find the best optimal solution. And when we had one of these afternoon, we were like, all right, how do we make that a thing? And by developing these like map creation tools, the puzzle maker, we realized that it was actually a bigger task than just like slap it on and chip it with the game,
you
right?
want it to be fun.
So like there's more work to do on that, but and that's why it's coming out after we ship the game. So the game is going to ship at first with the campaign and everything. But once that's coming out after, like we're really confident that people, when they create a level, they're kind of betting on themselves that other people can beat actually what they did with their puzzles.
No, and it's not going to be something that's overbearing with features. We made it really, really straightforward so that you would build something that's fun, that's quick, and then that you don't have to think about 1,000 different parameters. Because when we took our own level editor internally, we just stripped all this stuff out that was not necessary for a common player,
Right.
or like somebody who just wants to make something compelling and fun immediately. And so that's kind of how it happened, essentially.
So has that process kind of informed the levels going into the shipping game at all? Like as you kind of challenge each other on these levels, you're like, okay, we actually need to make some changes to these levels to, because now this one's a little too easy or this one's a little too tough. And
It's part of it, but it's also like what we want to ship in the game. It's usually different than just like make it evil.
Yeah, I guess you guys are so top level at this thing at this point. You're just like
so. There's some of the ways the mechanics work with each other that is really awesome, but that basically is evil, and it doesn't like we don't want to ship like we want to ship a nice experience that people go through and experience the game.
Difficulty ramp, something
But then like some of the levels were like, yeah, this is awesome. Just like put it on hold for now because this is going in the hard puzzle challenge things because this is insane. And we find out those things. We're sure that the week after the game's out, like the community is going to find like 20 more of that at least. Yeah. And that's really interesting because it kind of shifts how we make the game and how we code every feature. Because in the past, it wasn't a big deal to actually make a feature work with nothing else but like in that situation.
Right.
So you have a very specific situation that works that time and it's fine. But when you code the game so that other people can do whatever they want with it.
It impacts everything.
Yeah, you kind of have to build it so that it works in any situation, even the weirdest ones.
Right.
And then when you have this in the game, our game is still like way simpler than say like the Hitman game that came out. It's like 6 directions and like only one move at a time and like the enemy react, it's turn-based. But still you get this complexity that you have to open doors instead of close them when you create these features. Just to support, like maybe someone is going to have some idea of doing something weird that is going to be supported. So it kind of shifts what you cut out and when you cut in when you create a feature. It's really interesting to see what it changed.
Yeah, like the level editing, like it's something I've rarely gotten into, but I mean, we got into it so deep last year around Super Mario Maker,
right?
Where it just became just creating nightmares for each other, or creating nightmares for the community or with the community, and just like, okay, let's take these tools and use them literally in the worst way possible. For actual evil at that point. And it's exactly. It's the sort of stuff that, like, if this was in a shipping game, it'd be the worst game ever made.
Absolutely.
But to have that ability to go there when you have, friends that are like-minded friends, like that's
there's
huge.
definitely a big difference between what is shipped in a game and what can be made with a game.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So with Hitman, how easy is it to react to? I remember seeing the presentation at the event prior to E3,
yes.
And hearing about kind of like these speedrunner challenges and kind of tapping into what the community is doing with the game. Like, how reactive can you be to, like, or I guess, how much data do you have coming in, and how quickly can you react to that data and tap into something that's very hot in your community?
Well, we can react extremely quickly, is the short answer. The more nuanced answer is probably to say sometimes you shouldn't. Because if you see like a particular thing that's happening, your immediate reaction might be, oh no, we got to fix that, that's a bug. But sometimes you just need to breathe and let it happen and see if it's actually bad. So just an example of that, we, as a new item came into the game in episode 2, the breaching charge, which was designed as a thing you would put on a door or a safe or something, blow the door open. But people very quickly worked out that because it was not lethal, but still had a high impulse, if you placed it underneath someone, you could shoot them out of the level.
Fantastic. That sounds like Hitman. Yeah.
It's wonderful until you think they can land outside of the nav mesh. And then suddenly you've got living characters standing up, being unable to pathfind. It's like, oh dear, we better fix that. Yeah. Because, but so then it like mutates. So now this wonderful tool is being used to move items around the level. For the cardinal, a guy decided that he was going to kill the cardinal with a katana. And first, there is a katana in Sapienza.
Yeah.
So he decided that he was going to move the katana from the mansion over to the church without being in the mansion.
Oh my God.
So he was standing down by the church, spamming the launch button on the breaching charge to shoot the katana up through the air and land it at his feet by the church. It's like, awesome. Wow.
Yeah, like that doesn't sound like there's anything wrong with that. That just sounds like a good, weird, and
Perfect crime would be to make the
On
katana land
the guy.
On the guy, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like,
Well, I kid you not. The first elusive target was killed in that way, not with a katana, but with a fire extinguisher.
Oh, wow.
The
Okay.
fire extinguisher was placed on the breaching charge, and then shot up so it flew through a window, hit the guy in the face, and exploded. It's like accident kill. I'm like,
What kind of data you got on cans of spaghetti sauce?
Oh, yeah.
yes.
The most lethal, of course.
Yes, mostly they get used as throwables, right?
Yeah.
Because you can
it works well as a sedative, I find.
Yes, keeps them occupied while they are communing with the great porcelain telephone.
it's that sort of stuff is so fascinating. Like I feel like it taps into, like people really dissecting games in a way that older games that are being emulated and picked apart in crazy ways. But there was a video recently with Super Mario 64 and like picking apart parallel universes and so all these speed running techniques that just lead to like really understanding every little bit of clockwork, like every little piece of that game. And with Hitman being just so big and offering so much variety, it seems like people are that's exciting for me as a player, being able to see all these videos of just people doing the wildest fucking shit imaginable.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess like, does it take a really steady hand to know what to fix and when? You mentioned that you do have that gut reaction of like, oh no, we got to fix that.
We got to fix that.
But when you end up with, like, say, a pedestrian outside of that nav mesh, do you fix it all the way, or do you just kind of like go, okay, if they reach this certain point, kill them?
What we did was we actually amped the damage on the breaching charge, so it does kill them.
Okay.
But then again, maybe we've made a problem for ourselves, and I probably shouldn't even be saying this, but I will. It's entirely possible we've created a super explosive, because it doesn't have a big bang, but it has a lethal bang, right?
Yeah.
So,
what do you think, Coach?
We can try it out.
Okay.
You're a little sad from the beginning.
Sound like something we can work with.
I mean, weren't you guys blowing up like a huge mountain of bodies with dropping a toilet?
We put a bunch of mines on the toilet.
I was going to drop a toilet on that man's head.
I mean,
one way or the other.
You did. And lots of other guys' heads.
It only took 2 hours.
Yeah. That's
well, more than that. That was part 2 of the video.
That's true.
That to me is just beautiful.
time well spent.
Yeah, that's and I pay these guys to do that. That's reflects poorly on me, I think, but if anything else. But hey, people seem to like it. Right. That's how you got to do it. So, with this kind of cadence with Hitman, loose targets, escalations, all that sort of stuff, it seems like that it really has been pretty successful so far.
I mean, the scary thing with it is we're like going first, right? The first AAA game that actually does this episodic thing. And maybe our communication wasn't great, but it's a new thing that needs to be understood. And for good or ill, I think Hitman is really well suited to it, because I mean, the levels have always been deep, right? Even in Absolution, which was a solid game, but it was fairly linear in the ways that you could play it. Even that had an enormous amount of depth. A level like the King of Chinatown, there were so many ways to kill that guy. I think it was even a challenge in the game called, if this guy was a cat, he would still be dead, right? Because there are at least 9 ways to take him out.
Yeah.
So these games have always had it, but there's something about this format of saying, here's an episode, and you can go deep. Because the better you get at it, the more ready you are for when the Forgers and the Cardinals and others arrive.
Yeah.
On top of that, I feel like, once you complete that golden path or, whatever that critical mission is, like once you're presented with the opportunity to move on, you feel the compulsion to move on. Like I'm going to finish that mission once and then let's see what the next level is, and then I potentially never go back
you're done, right?
and look at the other 80% of that map that I didn't tap into.
Yeah.
It's
kind of
worked.
Like giving you the time to really drill into
it's worked
it.
super well,
Is
like shockingly well.
Yeah.
You guys,
we were actually discussing that like just 10 minutes ago, but as a person who never really got into the other Hitman game,
I'm the same boat.
it kind of made me understand them better in hindsight, because I see all right, the other games had that vibe too. It's just like they weren't presented as such as I could play for months and then get the new one when it comes out after having gone through everything in the level.
It's a kind of a nice. It's been like a nice monthly reminder, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you spend your week or so with the new map, and then you kind of forget about it, and then the next month it's like, oh right, Hitman, I'll play some more of that.
What's happened in the meantime?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, with a game like Deus Ex Go, like adapting this kind of franchise that is just this huge game, and trying to adapt it into this kind of smaller turn-based thing. Like, what are the things that you looked at as like, you know, like what in your opinion is like here's the core like moments, the core elements of Deus Ex that absolutely need to be in a Deus Ex Go?
Right. Well, the obvious answer is like the augmentations, like the cloaking and all of that. Also, like the hacking is a huge part of the game, and like even the narrative side. It's a big sprawling action RPG, basically shooter RPG, which was a really new genre like back in 2000. Yeah. So these are the things that we look at and think like this is what Deus Ex is, and basically the process of goifying a game, basically like we did with Hitman and Lara Croft, is like what is this game like making you feel as you play them? That's way more important than the actual things that you do.
Right.
And that was true again with Deus Ex Go, because like what you feel when you play a Deus Ex game is like you get in a hangar, there's a bunch of guards everywhere, there's like some computers, you see some turrets, cameras, you look around, and you're basically asking yourself, what am I going to do to actually use all of these resources? Basically, they're not like the resources, the level. How am I going to use that to get to the other end of the hangar, or find the intel, or kill that guy?
Which translates, translates really well to puzzle game mechanics.
Exactly, it's basically a puzzle in a free form, basically.
Exactly.
So when we look at that and make like we prototyped a lot of different mechanics for this game, but what we landed on was like, the core thing is like becoming invisible for a while. So using line of sight, these kind of things, being detected, being undetected, hacking different objects in the level. So you have different things that you can hack. You can hack turrets. You can hack like new things that didn't really exist in Deus Ex, because this is another game.
Right.
But like there's literally like parts of the puzzle that are inactive until you hack them. It becomes a line that you can walk on. So these are all elements that we feel answer, like they respond well into your Deus Ex kind of feeling when you play them. They're not literally one-to-one explanations of what Deus Ex is, but when you play the game, you really feel that feeling of like you get to a new level, you try and see how it's going to work together, you lure a guard away, you kind of lock him back by hacking a node behind him, and then you use the other hacking station to connect a turret that's going to kill the other guard. And then you cloak and like vanish behind the turret that you would never be able to hack. And then you get these kind of flow where you play the game and basically you're faking it. Like people think that they're playing Deus Ex.
Right.
But it's a puzzle turn-based game, which they wouldn't expect to feel the same things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that Hitman Go and Lara Croft Go like captured the feel of those games really well. It's been interesting to see like these games that are, you know, pretty wildly different across the three Go games, you know, in their original form, just being able to be adapted in this way that still manages to just maintain that vibe and feel of the original game.
Yeah, like Hitman Go is a board game about killing.
Yeah.
But then Lara Croft Go is a board game about going on an adventure. You know, like they
absolutely, and
feel
even
like
then,
those
like
things. You know,
the board game part was
we kind of dropped.
Yeah, it was part of the like cold, austere kind of like calculated thing. Was really board gamey for Hitman, but in Lara Croft it kind of became just like exploration and discovery, and like the camera, which was static in Hitman, started following Lara Croft in Lara Croft Go, because it was more about discovering even what the level was.
And the
in the
level
first place.
really unfolded
Yeah.
much
and you
more
guys
in front of you.
play with like distance, kind of seeing the next level way off and off on the horizon and stuff. Yeah.
And this is a thing that because we draw so much from the franchise, like we draw so much from Hitman and then Tomb Raider, and in this case Deus Ex, it means that even like without trying, because it's not without trying, there's a lot of effort, but even like without trying, the starting point is so different, and the intent is so different, that you end up with a different product that plays differently, that looks at feels a little bit like the same type of game, but when you play them, like the fact that you had the same process starting somewhere else completely leads you to a game that feels unique when you play it, which is really a point of pride for us with Deus Ex Go.
But the challenges that come with that are completely different. Like if you look at Deus Ex Go, the thing we are kind of figuring out right now is the entire layer of narrative to Deus Ex. It's a huge thing in the universe. So in a Go game that is, generally speaking, entirely nonverbal, how do you tell a story? So Hitman Go had nonverbal storytelling by the pawns in the scene. They didn't actually do anything, but they told a story about a very contextual story. Lara Croft Go, you had this very low-key animations in the back that were happening and telling the story of the Queen of Venom. But Deus Ex Go, it's you need to convey that story about conspiracies happening in the game, and still
you need to hack terminals and read emails. Period.
Yes. There you go.
I feel like this demands the question of like, what is the next IP that your company owns that would be your dream to make it go out?
Or I guess I mean, or do you think that there are any franchises that you definitely could not goify?
Oh gosh,
I'm not even sure that could, like, I don't think there's a thing we couldn't do.
No,
honestly, like I think if you take that process and are smart about it, if you go and cross your T's and dot your I's and like do your job, I think there's not much like even like in the industry that we couldn't goify. It's just a matter of like where we want to go. Like it's a small studio. There's 35, 40 of us, a couple of teams, like 3 teams. That means if we're making like, let's say the next game is another Go game, there's something else that we're not making at that point.
No, exactly.
And it's more of a question of
it's a creative decision right now. The teams are so small and we make things in a very handcrafted way. We need to make the best investment of our time. So is it going to be a Go game? Is it not? Or which IP are we going to work with?
Right.
We, at this point, we can't really say, but what's been great is everybody in the group is recognizing the work we've done with Hitman Go, Lara Croft Go, and the guys at IDOS for Deus Ex Go have been requesting DX Go for months before we launched Lara Croft Go.
Actually, like this was GF was asking for Hitman for Deus Ex Go. Jeff Dugas, the executive director, he was asking for that even before Hitman Go came out.
Yeah,
it was like, okay, is that? Are we next?
Can we get in on this?
Yeah. And like I remember because we still like work pretty closely with them. We're not the same team. We're not like following what they want to do with the game or anything. Yeah. But we do go to them and like.
You go to them. All right, go on.
All right.
Oh my God. The number of puns you make.
Go on.
Let's move on. Their studio is like 3 blocks away from us in Montreal, so we can just walk there. And we did, and we do.
We bug them all the time.
Yeah, we bring them new builds, and actually Internet does that. But we have meetings with them. We discuss what some things could be, what other things like would be preferable to be different and stuff like that. So we did have this input of like, just steering, making sure we have the right vibe at the right moment. What Jensen is about is it is very much like it takes place in their universe, so they have they have to have. But
we do come up to them and we're like, okay, guys, it's gonna be a little weird, but here's what we're gonna do.
They're very open and they were like a charm to work with because they were so enthused about the fact that we were actually making this game.
Yeah.
But it was a really good relationship and like.
Like working with IO, working with Crystal, working with them, everything has been so nice. Everybody is very excited to see new takes on their universes, and we came up with such weird little things that everybody was like, oh, okay, all right, we're gonna. It's weird, but go ahead, do your thing. So it's been great.
It's just mobile games.
Whatever.
Just do Hitman Go, whatever.
Game of the year, whatever.
Yeah.
Where's my Apple design award?
You don't just carry it with it, just pull it out. And
well, she actually does.
I know it was a mistake. Like it was. I accidentally pulled it out.
She had the pocket design thing award for most
on
of the
the table
day.
By accident. I left it during an interview, and the guy tweeted about it. It was like, "Oh, nice of you, Square Enix Montreal, to leave your Apple Design Award in the middle of this."
Run back and grab that, and everything will be okay.
It's super heavy too, huh?
Yeah,
it's a really huge.
There's a light. We don't know how to turn it off, but there's a light.
Oh, wow!
It's a really nice thing. Yeah. Anyway,
I recommended it before we started, but I just put it out there into the world. Just Kane and Lynch go.
I'm working really hard to do Gex Go, actually.
Yeah,
Okay,
now you're
all right.
talking.
Well, now the mental wheel
Right,
of
yeah,
IDOS properties
yeah.
from
we
back
we
in the
keep
day.
hearing also what's the Soul Reaver Go.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Soul Reaver Go comes back
Comes back
often.
all the time.
The more
Backyard
you
wrestling
tweet
Go.
at us about Go
Backyard
games, the
wrestling
more
Go.
it's gonna work.
Wasn't Mr. Mosquito?
No,
Mr. Mosquito
wasn't that a
was
fresh
no,
game?
that was
That
Fresh
was-
Games.
wasn't that a-
That was IDOS.
Wasn't
I guess
that
they
IDOS?
did the fresh games. It was Mr. Mosquito and the Mad Maestro.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just taking notes.
Mr. Mesquite.
Making
Mr.
a
Mesquite Go.
Done.
Okay.
Nailed it.
All right.
Get
All right,
3
boom.
deep cover get go.
Crystal Dynamics did a port of Samurai Showdown to the 3DO. Could you do no? Yeah. That's so. How much crossover would I guess I don't know how it's structured, but would there then be an opportunity? Like, are you kind of like? It sounds like you're only thinking about kind of the IDOS-esque properties, whereas obviously like Square Enix has this whole thing in Japan where they make all these other IPs that get their own sets of games and all this other stuff. But like, would there ever be a reasonable opportunity to even get into something like a Final Fantasy Go? That's not me saying like, hey, are you going to do it? But like, is that something that would even be on the table?
I mean, we've been definitely and very obviously cutting our teeth on the Western franchises.
Sure.
I mean, the Japanese franchises are definitely something that we would love to work with, but it's not a given. Again, we're still such a small studio and we're growing and we're evolving.
Like
so
it's a pitch process.
It's having the right. Even for this X Go, in the beginning, it was like, can we? If we were gonna make this X Go, what would it be? Like, it wasn't like, okay, this is the order right now. We are making this X Go. It's like, would it make sense? What would it be? All right, it's cool. Let's do it.
And I don't know if you remember, but before we even pitched, and this is like completely unreleased stuff, but before we pitched the Go game, we pitched a card game.
Yeah.
For Deus Ex.
For Deus Ex. Yeah, it was a different kind of vibe.
And we were playing around it. It was not
some
really
sort of tactical
working
thing.
as much as we wanted to, so we just dropped it.
Yeah.
But it was we go through all kinds of different ideas. If you look at Hitman Go, the initial idea was it came out of an entire incubation process with a bunch of different teams who were pitching ideas around a mobile Hitman game. Yeah. And it's just stuck. Like when everybody saw it, we were like, oh, okay,
it has to
that
stick.
makes sense.
Like,
yeah.
And if the pitch is there, if the will is there, if something gets pitched that's really cool and uses like a franchise from Japan, I guess we're gonna make it work.
No, exactly.
But it's just
Sure.
It's really through that we believe we can make the best game. Basically,
Yeah. And so obviously, you're here with unreleased software, so like newly announced and all that stuff. So there's the demo cycle. But with Hitman, it's a little different, where it's a game that's out, and obviously there's new content. Like how's it been? Like showing off? Like are you showing off new stuff here? Is episode 4 here? Or
right? Numbers are fun. So we said 6 locations, 7 episodes. And people were like, oh my God, what's the unannounced location? Yeah. Well, the whole point was there wasn't an unannounced location. There was a mid-season double feature, which in Hitman Season 1 is 2 missions, one in Sapienza, and the other one is in Marrakesh. So in Marrakesh, it's Marrakesh by night. It's more calm and more pleasant, really, than the big riot that's happening in Episode 3.
Right.
Sapienza, though, is the entire flip side of this. This is almost like a modern version of Curtains Down from Blood Money. The setup is that troubled actor-director Dino Bosco is filming his sci-fi superhero epic in Sapienza. Big film set, and it's like the third act of the movie where the alien overlord has attacked Sapienza and he's fighting it, right? But it's a film set, so he's doing all his own stunts. He loves practical effects, pyrotechnics, he loves that, and 47 is on set too, so... That's going to go wrong, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot of interesting objects to work with in a situation like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's just it's us being a little bit free, right? Because the first 3 episodes establish the story and bring some new players into the franchise's published fiction, and then we take a break. We do our Halloween Treehouse of Horror, in this case in Sapienza and Marrakesh, and then when we're done with those, we'll move on to episode 4, which will take us through the rest of the storyline.
Nice.
In the first season.
Okay. Do you have any plans to make the elusive targets way easier so these guys can eventually get one?
It's him, man. He's playing.
I just do what he says.
You worked as a duo.
I gave good advice.
You are inexorably
it's the
linked.
execution of it that goes wrong.
Yeah.
Something. It's so difficult, right? Because we build them, and we have ideas about how doable they are. But I remember when we were doing the first one, and we were kind of sort of trying to get a sense of how we should design them. I sat down with the creative director of IO, Christian Elvedam, and he said to me, look, Torben, when you design these things, remember, you're up against the hive mind. And that's true, because even something like the Cardinal that was really tough to get into because he was wrapped in rings and rings of security, within about 3 hours, people had cracked a hole in his security and found a point where you could quite easily just snatch him away from his bodyguard and do silent assassin. So we're kind of pulled between these two poles, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, they do need to be approachable because I think the tension might be unbearable if you, for example, had to take out 5 targets, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not saying that there won't be a 5-target elusive target, but the whole challenge is to kind of balance between making it something that's fun but tense and exciting to play, and something where you think, I don't even dare touch this because it is just mad.
Right. Yeah. That's a tightrope. But I guess there were some stats. Was it? I was trying to remember. Was it 53% on the first elusive target were completed?
Yes.
That's over half.
Yes.
That's over half. Sounds easy.
And escape too, or just killed the guy?
I mean, that guy died. We saw it.
No,
and
part of that 53%?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Spiritually,
and escape.
Claiming a moral victory.
And we actually see that number rising a little bit as we go through them. But Silent Assassin is flat around about 5%.
Are scissors or a gun more effective?
Yeah,
scissors.
Risky. And it seems like
100%.
you have to be a specific type of person to really chase down those sorts of
I
challenges.
mean, when we stream them, we don't try that.
Yeah. I bet not.
Did you guys front load the production schedule with a lot of that stuff? Because like when those targets started rolling out, I was shocked to find they have like unique VO attached to them, and like each one has a FMV intro and stuff, and it like sounds cynical, but like there's a lot more work put into each one of those for like a weekly challenge than I would have ever expected.
So it's one of the things that I just feel is so awesome about the support we've gotten from Square, that we've gotten the support to build this content, knowing that this is a mission that is going to be there for 48, 72 hours, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
This idea that right now there's a target in Paris, the Sensation, and there are a bunch of people who will never have a chance to play that. But it'll exist.
At E3.
I mean, it'll exist. It'll be immortalized on YouTube and video streaming sites. But some of us will miss it. So it's absolutely fantastic. So to kind of more directly answer your question, yes, we front load. We had some ideas about how quickly we could bring them into the game, but I don't know, as the saying goes, no release of a game ever survives contact with the enemy. We delayed it to kind of get on top of some challenges that we had, and then we started bringing them out. So yes, we produce ahead of time, but we are already going back to some of the ones that are in the bank and kind of adapting to what we've seen. For example, things like poisons are very much easy mode in these games, because if you work out whether or not they're going to drink something that you can poison and you can get to it, you can basically just sit by the exit and wait, and boom, and you've done it. And if you time it really fast, you can do it before the AI updates and spots the body.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So some of those we work on them to maybe entirely remove the poison setup, or might be really nasty and say someone else is going to drink it as well. And we also work a lot with randomness, which is not normally something we do in a Hitman game, because you need to learn the patterns. It needs to be very predictable. But in Elusive Targets, we actually aren't afraid to be a little bit random. So if you take someone like the Congressman, he had 4 different locations that he could go to. But at any point, you didn't know which one he would go to next, because he made that decision when he was at the point. So you could work out the places that he would go and think about what opportunities those offered. But even like the wine tasting that he would do in the basement, there was only about a 1 in 4 likelihood that he would actually drink anything on a given cycle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was, I mean, the goal with these things is really to encourage people to think on their feet.
Right.
There was a long time when you couldn't actually restart an elusive target. Once you were going, you had to finish it. There was a while when we played around with the idea of a running quick save. So you could leave it and come back to the point that you got off.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we need to leave it where it is. So you can restart if you want to, and some people will scum that, and that's fine. And some people will do one and done and get the laurels for that.
Yeah.
Is this the way it will always be? To be honest, I don't know. By the time we get to the end of the season, they may actually be running in a slightly different way to the way they are now, which is the fantastic thing about being a live game.
Right.
We see the metrics, we see the experiences, we see attach rates and all of these things that are very much the language of free-to-play and mobile games, right?
Yeah.
That we're being forced to embrace because there are so many things that have been learned the hard way that we need to do as well.
Yeah. Great.
Even taken out of the mobile and free-to-play context, these are still things that are super worthwhile.
Absolutely.
As a developer, you want people to play your game, you want people to keep playing your game, and you want to make the best game possible for people who really love your game.
Yeah.
And that's all part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like evil words like retention and like daily active users and like average revenue per paying user and all of these.
All that data can be used for good or evil, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's
because at the core of it,
yeah.
if you make a game, you just want people to enjoy it as much as they can, and those who enjoy it, because there's always going to be a core fraction of your players who are like actually insane about your game and love it so much. These are the players that you want to serve the best, basically.
Actually, we set up ARPU metrics where we put time in instead of money.
Yeah.
So the money that you spent, the microtransaction you made in our game was the time you put into it. And off that, we could start detecting what were the things that kind of made sense using these metrics and these KPIs that have been developed to use in different games.
That's super fascinating. I wish we could talk about that stuff all night because it's just because we live in a crazy data world too. You know, just being on the web and all that sort of stuff. But we are going to wrap it up.
Yes.
Torben, Eddie, and Jen, thanks for so much for coming through. We're going to take a break and come back with our final segment for the night. So stay tuned for that mess. Someone lifting weights out there?
It's like, just the standard.
Yeah, it is just the standard. Hello, I'm Jeff Gerstmann. Welcome back to our final segment of the evening for night one of E3 2016. It's time to wrap it up in style with the classiest group of people I know.
Can't even maintain that illusion for a second, can you?
From Sony Interactive Entertainment America.
Yes, 4 for 4.
John Drake.
Nailed it.
John T. Drake.
That's my name.
Tiberius.
From Adult Swim Games, Sean Baptiste is here. Hello, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, we got Dan Teasdale of No Goblin fame.
Fame, yes, that's a very quotation mark.
Yes.
The famous robotsman.
Yeah. We got Ubisoft's French-Canadian Eric Pope.
Oui. It's as far as I've gotten in my French classes.
It's the Wii U now.
Wow.
They're moving on.
How's that Just Dance?
It's a good dance game.
All right.
Finally, you get to work at a company with a good dance. Alex Navarro is here.
Yeah, I guess I
was thinking that when that press conference was on, I was like, I wonder if it's weird for you to work for the Just Dance company now.
It's weird on that level.
Yeah, not that you're like near it.
No,
I imagine, because there's like 20 trillion
in a
people
different
working at the
country.
company. Yeah.
Istanbul. We're doing games
We're doing
hitting and
games
striking
with people with canes.
Yeah.
Very intense.
That's right.
That dude seems awesome.
He's amazing.
He's really cool.
Jason Vandenberg, beard guy, cane guy. He looks really like
Beard Guy King Guy is his full legal name.
It's actually accreditation in Canada.
Oh,
Beer
okay,
Guy
okay,
King Guy.
yeah, all
he
right.
looks super
OBE.
intimidating
Yeah.
and kind of scary, and then he has the amazing voice too. But he's the nicest guy in the world.
It's when he last year I think it was the same deal. Like it just the voice, and you're just like, man, that guy.
Yeah.
He seems classically trained.
And then he can kind of like shift into like, hey, what's up, you guys? No, I'm just fucking with you. Like, and that's the best. He's the best.
Yeah. Oh, and he knows what he's doing too.
Oh, yeah.
He's working that room.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I'm trying to, and he's down for it. I'm trying to organize like some sort of event with the other game industry people where he just DMs a giant Dungeons and Dragons match. It might happen. He seems down.
I would be in on that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be cool. So, E3 night one is over. You guys are in wildly different parts of the business these days. At one point, you all worked together at the same company.
Boy, we did.
True.
Did we work together as a strong?
Well, okay, all you were employed.
We were
We occupied a similar space.
Similar place,
Yeah, we
similar
did.
time.
Yeah,
Were
but
we all there at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all there at the same time. Dan, we didn't allow him near us at any point. No, well, he earned that right.
yeah, like I feel like
that's something I've learned for like about 2.5 weeks worth of time.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably wouldn't know any of you knuckleheads if he hadn't gone to work there.
That's true,
It was a weird thing of like, oh, Alex went to go work for the Rock Band. Right, okay. And then he would say things like, yeah, this is what, I don't know. I think my boss is going to quit and go write TV shows at some point. So
How'd that work out for you?
I almost got out. Couldn't get out. Couldn't pull out of orbit. It's that thing where you're like terminal nope, and then you just crash back in the atmosphere.
But writing TV shows, would you have such flash shoes?
No, man. I got my PlayStation Air Force Ones on. What? Get hype.
Yeah.
Rep the brand all day, every day.
All day. Oh.
Positive E3.
All day.
Clip this mic out. I'm blowing the fuck out of this compressor.
And how is?
God damn it,
No,
Drew.
you're good? Okay, all right.
Stupid Drew knows how to use a mixing board.
How's Positive E3 going?
It makes Dave Lang so mad.
Worked it then. Okay.
And it makes everything so much. It makes it so much more positive. He said two things to me. He said, A, I saw how positive you were being on Twitter, and I thought you were having a stroke. And then B, I saw how positive you were being on Twitter and made me super pissed. And I said, yeah, man, that's pretty much why I'm doing it, and I will never stop now. And then the next game we started playing was I just started working names of Sheryl Crow songs into common conversation until it made him and one of my coworkers walk away from me. Literally, they could not talk to me anymore. Because I was like, here's the thing, Brett. You know, I'm only here. All I want to do is have some fun. And, you know, I want to stay out all night until the sun comes up over Santa Monica Boulevard. And you'd be surprised at how many Sheryl Crow songs you can work into a normal conversation.
You know, every day is a winding road.
Every day is a winding road. You know, hiring Eric Pope, my favorite mistake.
It's been a
I
long
have
December.
to leave. I can't be near. I have to go.
It's paralyzing, right?
No, it's just like this. I feel this. Ugh.
Yeah, you should go outside. You've been in this room all day. You should go outside and soak up the sun. Just really get out there.
Wow.
Oh, it makes me so happy. If it makes you happy, it can't be that bad.
Come on. Now I'm in.
Yeah.
Now I'm back in.
Jesus Christ, now I'm angry.
Yeah.
This is,
Sean Baptiste, you're out at Adult Swim Games in beautiful Atlanta.
Beautiful Atlanta. Atlanta's great. I didn't realize I had to live somewhere shitty for like 38 years. Like, I don't have to shovel anymore. It's amazing.
All those Braves games you can go to.
All those Braves games I will never go to.
Great.
Superstation, baby.
All the Coca-Cola you could drink.
Oh, yeah. And forced to.
Yeah.
Try to find Pepsi.
Yeah.
Try to find Pepsi.
That
You'll
was
be shot on sight.
Those are like the three things I remember about when E3 was in Atlanta. Drink a lot of Coke.
Yep.
It's uncomfortably hot. And Ted Turner.
Also, there's a place called Buckhead.
Yes,
That's it. I know that's the only thing Pope knows.
It's true.
Yeah.
I saw a movie in Buckhead once. It's the nice part of town, apparently.
Now all the movies are shot in Buckhead.
Oh.
We call it Yollywood.
I don't.
I think you just did.
It's a stupid name. It's a stupid name. No one should call it that.
You always said it to judge it.
Yep.
Dan Teasdale, the Pacific Northwest.
The best.
Great.
How
Love
is
it.
the Kickstarter calendar business treating you?
I want to make that fucking full time. I want that to be. I want to be.
I thought you were. I
Yeah,
thought
it
that
feels
was
pretty full time to me.
Yeah, actually, no. We have our first like actual like person we've brought on to the No Goblin family. If you want to say is calendar, 100% full time calendar work.
Oh my god.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you own a game company. and your first hire is
game company. Oh, yes.
It's a multimedia company.
Yes. We work in VR experiences. That's what we like to call them. Yeah.
VR and print cameras.
So full time to do 12 pictures.
Well, it's very,
that's dumb as shit.
I have to print towels. I have to print mouse pads.
Oh yeah,
those fucking towels.
Have to.
I
have to.
So Dan put my face on all these towels and sent me a bunch of them. And when my parents came to visit recently, my wife made great joy in putting them out as often as possible. Oh, would you like to dry your hands?
Just randomly.
Did that just lead to questions that you just could not answer?
It was a sitcom-esque situation of me trying to find them and hide them before they could see themselves.
Well, I mean, at least you're not mostly naked in the back of a car.
True.
Yet.
Yeah. The night's young.
Yeah. That's that picture of Lang is haunting.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
That mouse pad.
That mouse pad that I use every day.
Lang at least gave his consent for that picture. Fair enough. Dan just went ahead and had mine made.
Let's just clear this up right now. You promised me a photo. You're like, I'm going to be in your calendar, your inaugural Men of Game Development calendar.
True.
And then like, oh, it's time for you to give me a photo. It's like, oh, I'll get you one soon. And like 3 weeks later, oh, we need to print these calendars right now, otherwise people are going to be pissed. It's like, oh yeah, totally going to get them. And then nothing. It's like, fuck it. I'm going to find a naked guy in winter running down the road, and I'll take Eric Pope's face on it. And I think it worked out.
Mm-hmm. I think, I think that photo worked out.
Absolutely. I think it's highly erotic.
Yeah. That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's fantastic news. But you are also making a
some video game
virtual
golf
reality golf
thing. 100-foot robot golf.
Yes.
Yep. What's that game about?
It's 100-foot robots playing golf.
Okay, cool. Super rad.
Somehow you have once again roped in bona fide journalists to provide content for your video game.
We have the McElroy brothers as our commentary team
That's
in
a good
100-foot robot golf.
Who's the bona fide journalist, though?
My brother Burns.
I can't say because it's just true, man. Yeah, that's big.
That's fucking crazy.
Fun. That's fun, crazy news.
I feel like everything we do on this project is like, it'd be awesome if we could get X, but that's never going to happen. But let's just send an email and see if that happens, and then we have the McElroys doing commentary and like this amazing fucking art we don't deserve for robots and characters and releasing on PSVR and all that crazy, and PlayStation 4 on a TV,
Yeah, I
not
heard
just a
it's
PSVR.
TV compatible, this game.
That's true.
Works with television. So is that just gonna be printed on the back of the boxes for PlayStation 4? That works on TVs.
You gotta add stickers every game.
Oh well, yeah, just the whole
Whole
back
initiative,
catalog, just for your television.
TV compatible.
Oh well. And you're showing off the game here in a virtual reality sense. When you brought it around, it was in a non.
It was in a TV sense.
It was a real reality.
It was a real reality sense.
Yeah.
And then I guess we had to show it at VR at some point, so just to make Drake happy. So.
And how has that been going?
I checked in on it. Sony's been running all our stuff. So it's great. I show up like an hour late after the show starts and check in, see how everyone's doing. They're doing better fucking spiels than I ever do. I'm like, great, I don't need to be here. I'll just watch a couple of run-throughs.
We had a whole meeting trying to figure out what was happening in the game with that staff who's going to operate it, and we came up with we figured it out. We explained it to Dan, and it seems like he's now on board with how the game works, which is great.
Great. Yeah.
Someone had to get into it.
Is that just Kessler's job at that point?
Yeah, well, it's basically what I did at Harmonix when Dan was designing Rock Band, was just explain to him how the game worked, and then
it's like, okay, there are buttons on a guitar.
He's like, I added these 8 things that I didn't tell you about, and then I tweeted all of them. And I'm like, no!
Oh, God, the leaks.
God!
To be fair, every time we do an announcement, I have that fucking John Drake fear.
Yeah. Someone's going to come get me at the company I wholly own. Yeah, no, you're fine. You're not Chris Foster. Sick, deep Rock Band design. Joke.
Wow.
No one's awake watching the show in that office. They're all asleep.
No, it's Boston.
2 in the morning.
Yeah. Eric Pope.
Hi, Jeff.
Recently, you're so far away.
I know. Alex told me to sit here.
I mean, like,
I wanted to touch him.
Some sort of grudge, I think. I like your ska shoes.
Oh, thank you.
Hold these up.
Yeah, I got these.
Jesus. Thank God his ankle is flexible. That was horrifying.
Resident Evil
shit.
It does.
What's moving to Canada like?
It's really complicated. Because it's just so what I guess I didn't really realize until I had to do it. Canada's fine. Quebec is like a country within a country, like in a multitude of ways. So the Canada
Have you become a
portion,
separationist now? Or are you like,
yeah, sure, Viva Quebec.
yeah, all right, good, yeah.
Yeah, no, like it's the real deal. So they have their own social systems, like the socialized medicine is better in Quebec because it's their own system, and like you pay sales tax to Canada, and you pay a bigger sales tax to Quebec, and like there's all this stuff, and then there's the whole political thing where the French-speaking population wants to secede from Canada and be its own country, and if you're speaking English, you might get yelled at for speaking English.
All the time when I go to Montreal, I get yelled at for
I was
speaking
gonna say
English.
that's kind of the.
But
I'm not
it's
from
great.
here.
All the great things they say about living in Canada are actually true. Like everyone, apart from the few who are separatists who want you to go away, are actually super nice.
Have you met Drake yet? Like Drake.
The other Drake.
Why does he get to be Drake?
You know, because he doesn't have another name.
Aubrey.
Have you met Aubrey?
Oh, Aubrey,
There you
yes,
go.
I have.
Yeah. No, he's there at the border. He greets you.
Okay, good.
right.
You know, the number of like confusing conversations I've had over the years about hip hop artist Drake.
Yeah.
When I go like, what, John? What?
Yeah, it's my favorite way to chime into a dumb Twitter conversation is someone talking about Drake and me being like, "Oh, thanks so much, man. I'm really glad you dig the music." And they're like, "It's not that funny." And I'm like, "I know. Here I am."
I know, but I'm sitting here anyway, and I got to type something.
And then I roll out.
Nice. Yeah, just wheel right out.
The really cool thing to me about Montreal is there's a massive game dev community.
Yep.
Like every big company's there.
So not like Boston.
Those tax subsidies, they're no joke.
And that's a Quebec thing. Yeah. Quebec's very socialist. And that's the fascinating thing to me, like politically, right? Is like they're very liberal, progressive, except for that one issue about the language. Is like, get the fuck out unless you're speaking French, but have our health care, have free daycare for your kids.
But
like,
don't bring your car here.
The car was the worst part. The car, I have a 2005 Prius, and it cost me $3,500 in fees, fines, taxes, and repairs
American
just
dollars?
to bring it across the border.
That total the car basically at that point.
That's the thing. You cross the border and they just assign a value, and that's what you pay all these fees on. And they said it was worth $11,000, which is not even Canadian.
Not after you got your hands on
But
it.
you can't say anything. You're like, okay.
You should have like once they assess that value, just be like, I'll take 2 for it right now.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you say?
What's it going to take to put you into this Prius?
Right. What's it going to take for me to just walk away from this car and maybe you set it on fire?
Should have done that.
Like
I really
the
should have.
insurance.
Yeah, unbelievably, the car was the hardest part of the whole process of moving an entire family to another country and buying a house.
Crazy.
Was the car.
Yeah. No, I have still never been to Canada.
You should go.
It's nice.
I've never been to Canada.
Wow.
I
Like at all?
recommend it.
Yeah. Well, there
right
was.
there.
I know, but
That's our hat.
there was an era of like video game trips
Yeah.
where
like that.
everyone was going to Canada all the time. People were going to Cancun, just all kinds of weird, dumb shit. And like we were working reviews at the time, so we never went anywhere.
Right.
We sat in San Francisco and said, "Fuck those guys. Games show up. We say they're bad."
So much has changed.
I know, right? Now the games don't show up.
Now we go
Now the
places.
games get
but we
announced.
still
You
do
say those
that.
games are bad.
You should come. It's great. To Canada.
That's it. Official tourism slogan of Canada. You should come. It's pretty great.
It's
Don't
great.
drive your car there. Otherwise, it's totally fine.
So if I were to drive my car there and just say like I'm just hanging out,
That's fine.
they'd be fine.
Yeah.
But if I'm like this car's staying here,
Yeah,
they'd
you
be-
have to. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So you first you have to export it from the U.S. and so they send you to this website. It's like, oh, cool, an online system. It's a website built only for people who do shipping, like shipping companies.
Okay.
And to register for the website, you would normally use a social security code, but they decided your social security number is not safe, so you need an employer ID number, which the
EIN.
average citizen has. So I had to
Right.
create a sole proprietorship to create a login for the system, which I then spent 3 hours trying to fill in like all the terminology, shipping terminology.
Sounds great.
Fill it out, and then at the end it's like, we've updated our system. You have to go to this other website and do it on a different system.
That sounds right.
And that was just to do the export portion. Then you do the import portion on the Canadian side.
Did you consider driving the border, putting the car in drive, and just ghost riding your
Just-
whip and being kind of holding your registration like, it's not my car,
Yeah.
it's not my car, and then getting back in and driving away.
I really wish I should have.
Ghost ride that whip.
Oh, God.
Ghost ride the whip.
So
Le whip.
Moving to the Pacific Northwest, was that similarly difficult?
Yeah, I had to. I drove for 7 days, nonstop.
Okay, yeah.
From
Australia?
From Australia to the Pacific Northwest, and I set up a company, which is it's actually pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But you set up an actual company, not just Eric Pope Esquire.
Yeah,
I
the thing you forgot is to then not like just do the company as your thing. You're just setting it up as a shell organization for.
No, it's like a pyramid scheme of like fake shell companies. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
I
like-
will say it's really easy to set up a company. I did it in like 10 minutes on a website.
Yeah, you can just you fill out the forms and just say yes, of course I'm from Delaware, and then that's that.
Yeah, now I'm terrified next year at tax time. I'm going to be taxed as some sort of corporation.
Talking on the internet about it's probably a really
Yeah,
good,
it's a good start.
Business taxes are fucking
No
terrible.
one's watching this.
Wow. So Adult Swim Games is just like caught on with all this crazy shit that like weirdly, maybe not weirdly, but it fits into the Adult Swim brand. And it's like pretty good games, and like, how is that? I imagine you just get pitched a bunch of fucking weird shit that kind of sucks all the time from people who think they know what Adult Swim is.
That's exactly how that goes.
Yeah,
You wouldn't believe
you're
how
like, this
many,
fits right in perfect. And you're like, you're not funny at all, dude.
we get like these manila envelopes, and we got one that was like done in crayon. Like literally in crayon, and it wasn't like ironically done in crayon. It was like, this is my game design. You guys are gonna believe this. And I would say Steve G, who he's the one who has to look at these games first. I mean, some of them are amazing, but yeah. But he gets a lot, and we've brought it down to like 90% of the things we get either involve butts, or doing drugs, or my favorite one, butts doing drugs.
I was gonna say, like that's
it's
the natural.
really like, and that's like 90% of submissions. That they're like, this is exactly like Adult Swim. It's like all your butt drugs stuff. And we're like, Assy McGee was a while ago.
Yeah.
There was at least like a twist on that.
Right.
So
that was a thing. It wasn't just a butt doing drugs for 12 minutes.
yeah. So I mean, there are people who are like, yeah, we totally get your brand, and you're like, you do not.
No, incorrect, sir.
You don't. That's not.
So
how
instead,
that
you sign
goes.
the best and brightest of independent video game development in the world. And make that your brand.
Yeah. So instead, we're like, let's go find really awesome people who make awesome shit, and then
Let's put out Jazz
put it
Punk.
up. Yeah, let's put out Jazz Punk.
Right.
And then let's put out Death Gambit and Rain World and everything. So Highlander. So it's kind of fantastic to just be, because I've never, it's great to work on a whole catalog of games and be like, I'm literally excited about all of these, and not ironically, or not like, I don't have to pretend to be excited about Chinese democracy.
I don't know if any of us pretended to be excited about that.
Crooked X.
I did.
Crooked X.
There were a few days.
I did. Fucking Crooked X.
Crooked X.
Fucking Crooked X, man.
Should we get Reichert out here and
No.
really just like talk about this Guns N' Roses stuff?
No. Positive E3.
Dan, get back to your hole. Dan, get back to your hole.
I was telling
You can sit here and say it's okay while these fuckers beat the shit out of it.
I was telling Riker earlier, do you remember when we had to put out that garbage High School Musical ripoff that MTV did that was like a rock camp? And we had to put out like...
I'm sorry, you mean Camp Rock.
There we go. That one's been a rock camp.
Was that
the cartoon about Kid Rock's like
No, that
camp
would have been
for
1,000
eighth graders?
times better.
Oh my God, no one would have survived that movie. That's a terrible movie.
No, but we had to, like, MTV was like, yeah, we're doing this ripoff of High School Music. We can't allow this. We can't say ripoff. And then they would just like have to like, we had to put out like two DLC packs. That was like basically all of the songs.
Hey guys, this week coming to Rock Band, some movie on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, which was also the time of like the angriest people of putting out DLC announcements on Fridays, and then like me going out to the blinds in my house and like looking out the window to see if there were people ready to kill me.
Death threats, feeling
we
good.
got lots of death threats.
Yeah.
It was mostly death threats the
OG
whole way
death
down.
threats.
Like that week, or just
Oh no, most of the time. There was no way.
I mean, yeah, who among us has not had at least a few death threats?
It was
working
all
in video
death threats.
games?
This is a fun thing that we're all saying like we're joking.
Muse fans are very intense.
Yeah, but then when there was Luis was like, we're totally not selling out. Here's Rock Camp, Camp Rock.
Here's some 13-year-olds that one of our VPs got to know.
That may or may not be involved in some really sketchy stuff.
They're everywhere.
Cosgrove.
Amanda Cosgrove.
Don't bring her into this.
No, she was.
Don't sully the name of Miranda Cosgrove.
My pure sweet Amanda Cosgrove.
Miranda.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about someone else. Never
my
mind.
fault.
No, there's a whole series of videos.
All right.
Yeah, but it's
my
just
God.
like it's awesome getting like excited about everything with like really great people. So yeah, I'm like way into even though most of the games are way too hard for me to play.
Yeah.
Way too hard.
Yeah.
Well, I was
They're
thinking,
bad.
like, I had a couple of game ideas that maybe I would bounce off you. What about instead of duck game, it was butt game?
Tell me more.
Okay, well, sometimes you need like a speed boost, so the butts do drugs to move faster.
Wait, slow down a second.
Yeah, this is really
This is
good.
gold.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can twist it, and maybe I can, pitch it to more than one of you. There's a skeleton in it.
We already have our own skeleton exclusivity.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
we can't really double up on
I
that.
can't believe we haven't gotten to 100 butt robot golf. A robot made of 100
putting
butts.
game.
There now.
wait,
This is dangerous territory because we're fucking dumb enough to actually put that,
That
in.
is actually
Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
That's a new title screen or
Yeah.
something.
It's the Dave Lang mode.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, the guy who made a fucking iOS game of me flying around the country's a threat to make a thing that he shouldn't make.
I still
I'm
have it on my
yeah,
phone.
so do I. Can't delete it. Never. It comes back.
But I feel like
I spent a lot of time on that spreadsheet.
You
It's a
did.
good spreadsheet.
I felt
years.
terrible about it afterwards.
I really
Oh,
ruined
that's
my
right.
life.
There was a shared Google Doc that he wanted us all
Yeah.
to fill in.
No, I came
Yeah.
up with the idea of
Yeah.
let's fill out a shared Google Doc with everywhere that John Drake is
Yeah.
flying, and then my idea was like, and then we'll just eventually present it to him as like a John, you got to stop like intervention style.
print
Dude,
out of
come
it.
on,
Yeah.
this is, and
Oh,
then
it's
it
cool. My girlfriend broke up with me because of all that, but it was great. It was fine. It worked
It
out
seems to have
fine.
worked out for
it
you.
did. It worked out way better.
Right.
But at the time,
You're home a lot more these days.
I just don't post about where I'm going anymore because
Yeah,
people made a spreadsheet.
and that means we all win.
Yeah, everyone wins.
Ultimately. Also, I think if you posted where you were going now, it would just like tip
Spoilers.
too many
yeah.
hands on too many deals at this point.
You're right.
It's like, oh, it's flying to Maryland.
What else would be in Maryland?
I don't know.
No,
yeah.
Never post about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Do they still make you go to Destination PlayStation?
Yeah. Oh, you mean do I still get to go to Destination PlayStation?
Yes, that's what I mean.
The best event?
Yes.
Positive E3.
Positive E3. I like Destination PlayStation. It's fine. It's a retail
It's great
show.
when you don't have to play the same three Beatles songs over and over again.
Going as someone who's working in the show for Rock Band was not as fun, and then we got lost. And it's a giant circular resort, and we went left to go one building to the right and walked outside in the dark in the desert for an hour going around the long way in a circle. And I thought we were going to die. And there's video of that. There's a video on
The first thing
rockband.com.
I did when I joined the team was edit a video of night vision of them stumbling around this Arizona trailer park.
Scottsdale, baby.
And Alex doing some weird creeper voice the whole time.
Yeah, talking
No,
about
that's just my
jackalopes.
voice.
Yeah.
That's how I talk.
It's out there like spring training style.
Yep.
Back in the day. We covered Destination PlayStation. You're not supposed to do that. And we put a video on our website.
Oops.
We were like, oops.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
Whatever.
Like that was, yeah.
Old harmonics. We didn't care.
Yeah.
Nope. That was great.
Well, yeah. How do you guys end up going on that QVC trip?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Three of us here.
I didn't go.
Yeah, the three
Sean
of us.
wasn't there.
I was on another way less interesting.
The three of us. It was
Aaron.
Aaron and it was Kat, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I remember
And Allie?
I remember
Did you ask
Allie wasn't
how
there.
or how many?
How many?
No, how many of you?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember watching that and being so excited.
Yeah.
It was,
Like
yeah.
having
you posted a video about how excited
Yeah,
you
that's
were.
right. Yes, like having known Alex for as long, there was something about like, man, that kid made it. Like there was this
TV.
weird pride about like, fuck yeah, Alex is out there doing it.
I met Joe Rivers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look at him playing the drums on QVC. This is so fucking weird.
It was like you have an
3
interesting,
o'clock in the morning.
you have
it
an
was
interesting
amazing.
definition of making it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's all downhill from there.
It was definitely one of the weirder things.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they don't tell. I mean, I think we've maybe talked this before, but to briefly say it, they don't tell you. They said, "Hey, you're going to do some segments on QVC. We're going to have 3 shows. We have a show at like 4 p.m. We have a show that's going to air at 3 a.m. We have a show the next day at like noon." And we're like, "That sounds great. We'll go. We'll tape the 4 o'clock. And we'll go to sleep. We'll go to dinner, and then we'll come back. We'll shoot the noon show. Do a different one for the second day. It sounds great." They don't tell you all the shows are live. Like almost, like I think 100% of the shows are live.
Wow.
Yes.
And so they're like, "Oh, it's 4 o'clock," and they're like, "Okay, well, we'll see you at 1:30 for your call." And we're like, no, tomorrow shoots at 1. They're like, no, 1:30 a.m. You're on the air at 3. And we were like, I don't understand what you mean. That's not a time. So then we got done at like 4:30, and then it was like, well, we have to be back here in 5 hours. So like no one slept. and we drove around in a minivan, and we talked about Carvel ice cream cakes, and
well, and it's a super weird. What's the name of the town that it's in?
Middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so there's a town,
literally dead center Pennsylvania.
But that town is built entirely to support this monstrosity of QVC.
Oh, right.
And I think you pointed out.
Yeah, the town itself is essentially run by the children of the people
Everywhere
who
we
work
went.
at QVC.
Like 11-year-olds serving
It's
ice
like some
cream.
children of the corn shit,
Yeah.
where like there's like these teenagers like serving you at every fucking
Like
place.
smoking cigarettes, and just like frantically chopping vegetables.
It's the most bizarre thing.
Because all their parents are at QVC.
Yeah.
On the air,
I
apparently.
got into watching Japanese QVC, which is just live stream.
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
I'm really
it's on
excited about
YouTube.
this.
You can watch multiple versions of QVC in multiple nations at the same time, live on the internet.
Have you bought anything?
Fuck no.
Well,
Not from there.
okay. Well, you don't live your truth. You want to tell me about it? You
No,
can tell us about
I
it.
never see
We're all
anything
friends.
that would be super exciting
Okay.
to actually buy.
Are the products more interesting though than the U.S. ones, or is it the same?
No, it's just the
towels?
presentation.
Oh,
It's
amazing.
it is just the presentation of just like T-Foul or whatever they
Quacker
sell on
Factory
QVC all the time. Diamond L.
What?
Quacker Factory.
Quacker
Oh,
Factory.
Quacker Factory.
Yeah.
I said Cracker Factory. Yeah, no. That would be weird.
Yeah.
That was a really long trip. And also, that's where we're going if there's ever a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, and I don't use that word accidentally, it's literally like a square mile concrete building with heavy rolling metal doors
No
filled
windows.
with food and refrigerators for the cooking shows.
Okay.
Knives
For the knife
and
shows.
collectible swords for the knife shows.
Yeah.
And like cameras on every surface so you can see everywhere outside the
Yeah.
building. You could live there for years.
And basically one entrance. And
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
yeah.
I will say though, the knives might not get you very far because I think you'll probably do more damage to yourself than to anything else based on the QVC shows I've seen of the sword stuff.
Yeah, it's not great. Or ladders. Ladders and knives are things they shouldn't
They
sell.
should just don't.
Live
yeah.
Knives is a great Twitter account.
Yeah.
I don't know
It
if you guys
is.
are aware.
I follow it.
Yeah,
Live
no, it's been
Tom Modell.
It's been great
Tom Modell.
seeing the Cutlery Corner adapted for the modern
It's a good
age.
use.
Yeah.
New media Live Knives.
Yeah, that's been. I like the knife show. I like the knife show a lot, and it's not as good as it used to be.
Y'all should do a knife show.
You should absolutely do a knife show.
On the network. Giant Knife.
Yeah,
Spin-off
I don't know.
website.
Yeah, no, we started a Game of Thrones podcast a couple days ago. I
heard.
That's been going
I
great.
didn't listen to it because it sounded super uninformative, and I didn't like none of you have ever watched it.
No, it's the most information you will ever get in 7 minutes of a podcast.
We are Game of Thrones experts.
Yes.
And maybe when Giant Thrones episode 2 comes around,
Into
maybe
it.
you'll change it.
I made Dave Lang watch Game of Thrones at my house. He'd never seen an episode before. He was very confused and upset the entire time.
That sounds right.
Who the fuck is that guy? Why? No, why would you do that? It was just yelling.
To be fair, if he was informed, he still would have been yelling and
Yeah. Who is
angry.
that
So
guy?
I
it's
think
just,
the 1.5 episodes of it I've seen, I'd share his experience.
Yeah.
That lady seems real mean.
Yeah.
Why
yeah.
is she being so mean?
Why is she so angry? Her kid is the kid is a king or something. Why does she have to be so crazy?
Seems like a good gig.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this lady immune to fire?
Yeah.
I don't
she's
know.
Fire. She made of fire? Who knows?
I don't know.
She's a fire type.
I don't know.
There's an hour-long demo of her on the internet.
If you had a song of fire and ice, which one would win?
It would just be water. That's just water.
What?
Song and Ice is just water.
Would it just be Song of Water?
Song of Water. Water songs.
All right,
And
that's my new book series, Song of Water. It's going to be coming out.
Sheryl Crow presents Song of Water.
Oh, no.
I listened to that album when I was leaving Las Vegas. What can we talk about now? It's not this. Let's get away from it.
So, Sony PlayStation.
I never heard of it. Yeah.
The out there with the PlayStation 4.
Something.
Showing new games.
Video game console.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah, we're making a Spider-Man game.
Making a Spider-Man
By we,
game.
I mean Insomniac Games.
Yeah. Some
talented smart developers.
Some
are making a Spider-Man
announcements at that show. I know you as one of the behind-the-scenes wheelers/dealers.
Yeah, man.
Out there, I imagine, like every year, a ton of work goes into that show.
Yes, smarter, more talented people than I, cast of hundreds, and I'm just like in the audience, sitting there chilling. I get to go to rehearsals and then provide no value. I get to walk partners in and be like, let's review your segment, and then they have notes, and I'm like, okay, talk to that guy, he's the smart guy, and they're like, what do we do now? And I'm like, let's go outside. We're done.
Yeah.
And they're like, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know. I walk up and down the stairs real good. They like it. They like to watch me come and go.
Understandable.
Yeah, it was a really good show. I thought this year was kind of crazy. I've heard their varying opinions on this website, but that's okay.
I think the opinions on this website are pretty,
we're very
pretty
uniform
yeah.
opinions on the website. We had a good time. I thought it was kind of a crazy show, and Spider-Man was my most exciting moment. I was just really excited to see that kind of out there. That's been cooking for a long time, and it's out there in public now. We can talk about it, and not in any detail, but people at Marvel and Insomniac will talk about it in great detail. I'm not those people.
I imagine like
I live behind a wall of that the guy, the magician's secret guy, who wore like the shitty mask and he was like walls of smoke, and I'm gonna tell you the
They
magician's
just
secrets.
put that on Netflix.
I know.
I'm very excited
I could
about
be watching that right now.
Let's watch it right now.
Knives, magic. And yeah, so I'm that guy, but like for business, I'm like, tell me your secrets, and I'm like, haha, bad Netflix show. So yeah, no, I don't talk about what I do at all, but I get to help, and it's fun to help. And Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean.
Hashtag Spider-Man PS4. Hashtag other things.
Whoa.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hashtag
Weed3.
Hashtag Weed3.
Yeah.
You know, the first room number when you come off the elevator here was 420, and I was like, hashtag Weed3.
I was. I noticed. I actually walked up to that room.
Did you knock on the
and
door?
I was going to take a picture of the room number and then post it as part of our illustrious E3 coverage.
Of your Instagram account.
Yes, on my Instagram
Hashtag
account.
Skate4.
Yeah. On my Instagram account, where I recently posted a picture of me riding on the Horizon Zero Dawn bike. There's pedicabs, like they're giving free rides. With there's a dude in a Horizon t-shirt is
like
riding a bike.
Like in the game where you wear
like in the game. Was riding a bike with a thing attached, and I had to get here to start the show tonight. And I was like, where the fuck is the cab line? And I ran into one Geo Corsi who said, you should walk to the JW. And I was like, man, I don't want to fucking walk to the fucking JW. I looked and saw this bike there said free rides. And I'm like, free rides, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So I had a dude ride this bike with me attached to it to this hotel.
I don't like the image of you attached to a bike. It sounds like a very
like just your bottom half has been replaced by a bike.
It's Loco Cycle 2 I'm working on.
It'll be huge.
Yeah,
it's really
this is
huge.
going to be gigantic.
Anyway, E3. It's
And,
been a great year.
And then a woman sat there with me, and there was an iPad attached to the bike. He's like, "No, we're gonna watch the trailer. Check it out."
What? Seriously?
And
You
they,
got, like-
they show the Horizon
That's
trailer
amazing.
on this thing, and I was like, "This is insane."
You should have live.
There's so much glare. I had originally planned to like just periscope
that
the
shit.
whole thing.
You also should have just like predicted what was going to happen in the trailer right before it happened over and over again. Be like, I know video games. Let me tell you what I think is going to happen. She's going to slide her that robot dinosaur's leg and then shoot an explosive arrow, and the woman be like, Are you like a designer on Horizon?
That's me.
Yep, I'm Mr. Horizon.
That's right. I made this game.
Yeah.
That robot thing that she's riding.
Yeah. Robosaurus Rex, get hype.
That's me. That's actually me rendered in the game.
Yeah, you
That's what I look
you're
like
a
under
motion
this.
captured
And I
actor.
ripped my shirt off.
And you're made of robots.
And it's just all this robot shit.
100 butts that turn into a robot.
Yeah.
100 butt robot fighting
100
golf.
butt robots, and then the orange parts are the parts you shoot.
I thought that the
Well,
golf
you got
part of
your
that
game,
trailer was
Dan.
really surprising. Yeah.
You got your game now.
Yeah, you did it.
No goal in game 3. Done.
What kind of mode of transport will be used to promote your game, Dan?
Oh my God, golf cart.
Golf cart, yeah.
Yeah.
Dumb question.
Yeah, why did you even ask?
Yeah, come on.
I would think hovercraft.
Well, I wanted you to say it out loud to the people so they would know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to help you promote your brand.
Did you ever see the video for special eds I got it made? And they got hovercrafts in it, little tiny like personal hovercrafts.
Whatever happened to that?
I always wanted one of those.
Hovercrafts are cool.
Just like the street?
No, I think they're on the water. I don't know what the fuck they're doing, man.
Physics is
They're
hard.
hovering.
Yeah, it's special eds. It was his only big song, I think. You know. Just,
Dan, if I could get a golf cart, would you drive around tomorrow and show people your game on an iPad while we drive around?
I would
D3?
do that while someone periscopes. Yeah,
I would be.
I
super
would be
into that.
absolutely
That's a
up for
segment
that.
I would be excited to produce.
Well, I'll tell you this:
Snapchat it
if
while
you're
it's being
going to show it on
periscoped?
an iPad, bring something to like block out the glare.
No.
Because I do like and everyone involved in this story, I'm telling, perfectly nice and
Yes,
doing their job super
jobs.
well, and I was like stoked.
Yeah.
It was like, this is like a fun, weird thing. But like, it was like, check out the trailer. And I'm like, this is glare and fingerprints that I'm looking at right here. Like,
Bop, bop, bop.
I've seen the trailer.
Horizon Zero Dawn's a great game. Coming soon. to PlayStation 4.
It looks fantastic.
It does.
It does. It looks fantastic. Brad had nice
Did
things
he?
to say about it earlier.
I didn't get to see it.
Yeah. That's a nice looking game.
Video games.
Yeah, video games.
Yeah.
So, Pope, I mean, your time
games.
previous to Ubisoft,
Yes.
like you were on a handful of different things that
Yeah.
were not music games, as Harmonix kind of spread out and did a few things. But For Honor is
A music game.
it's rhythmic.
It is actually rhythmic.
You're right. I mean,
But,
it
a form of dance.
it seems
the deadliest dance.
wildly different
Yes.
in a way that is. I feel excited for your career
It's
because
very exciting.
it would be very easy to typecast an Eric Pope as the Music Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's played
Literally
that
the
part.
Music
yeah,
Man.
he's been the news.
No, like when I was interviewing, I explicitly said like I don't want to work on Rocksmith or Just Dance because that's what I've been doing. And they're like, oh, this is Montreal, we don't do those. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
great.
No, we have better people for that.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that
better
means.
than you.
Oh,
What do
then
you
yes,
mean?
that's an
Yeah, so
acceptable.
so that was something that was exciting to just kind
Absolutely.
of like branch out and do
yeah,
other stuff.
Yeah, it's totally different. Like,
Yeah.
it's a 10,000 person company. They have resources to do things. So I don't know if you remember, PAX 2010, we had to build our own booth.
Well, more accurately, the fans
The
had to
community
build
built
our
our
booth
booth.
for us.
I remember
Do you
that.
remember
Yeah,
that?
it was like a mountain of garbage, right?
Yeah.
Like
It
an
was
actual literal, like people just showed up with shit.
Yeah, it was like a little garbage city.
It was like our mailbag feature where
Yes.
people
But a
just
booth.
yeah.
A functional booth to demo video games.
Yeah, we were cleared.
Functional,
We were cleared the budget to buy the booth space, and I think that was it.
We were given $10,000.
Yeah.
Which was enough for the booth space, a 20 by 20, and 2 televisions.
Yep.
And like power.
Because
And
at that point, MTV was like,
they were trying to suffocate us.
yeah. So
They
they're
were trying
like,
to smother us
oh,
in a
we
crib.
already got you the booth space, but you're on your own.
Yeah, good luck.
And so
good luck
we're like-
launching Rock Band 3 and Dance Central 1 with $10,000
Yeah.
at the biggest consumer convention we go to.
So we're like, what should we do? So we brainstormed a list of literally the stupidest things we could think of.
Don't want to bring these things.
Yeah, just like trying to one up each other. Like, what's a full suit of armor? Oh, full size Han Solo and Carbonite.
Kiddie pool full of balloons.
Yeah. And we put it on the forums, and people are like, okay, claim a thing, bring it to the show, we'll give you a reward. And within a couple hours, I think every single thing was claimed. Like, okay, whatever. And we get to the show, and every single item on that list showed up.
Just rolled up to the booth.
Every single one. So yeah, that was amazing, but also just like what we did a lot, I think, in those days was making the most with what we had.
We were scrappy.
Yeah.
And Jeff came up to us at the show and he said, hey, this booth is like really fun and kind of crazy. Are you okay? Like, is everyone still okay? And I was like, no. Everything's great. No. And then I started like sobbing uncontrollably.
Yeah, no, that's,
Video games.
That was, I feel like, one of my jobs was to make you sob on.
But MTV Games has gone on to great things. So it worked out, it
Yeah,
worked out
MTV's
awesome.
just doing wonderfully right
they
now.
really turned it around.
Hey, their news division's doing great.
Yeah. MTV Games News.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah, no, it's that's that kind of scrappiness and stuff like that. I mean, like we were a startup for a good number of years, and like it's you do a lot of really fucking crazy shit.
And I think you probably learned the same lesson that we learned, and maybe it's not the right lesson, but
Whatever it is, probably not.
For me, like what I took for
Every lesson I've learned over the past 9 years has been the wrong lesson.
like what I took from that booth example is like, a lot of the times the stupidest thing you can do is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like people love stupid shit. Like
Dan Reichert's made an entire career.
Yeah, Dan's
out of it.
whole career,
Yeah.
and this Dan has built a game company around like the stupidest ideas that are hilarious.
My
Awesomeness
entire
section.
ability to pay rent and eat food depends on the stupidest possible thing.
Yep.
Yeah. No, calendars with nearly nude pictures of Dave Lang in them.
This is what my life has become. I'm in my mid-30s and I have to print, half-naked man calendars to survive.
Spinning limos.
Spinning limos.
Go check
huge
out
robots.
Roundabout right now.
Paxomania was just like, what's the stupidest thing we can think of to do?
And that's making all kinds of money now.
It's
Aaron
Aaron
Trites. Aaron Trites, he's not here at E3.
because he's too busy making all that money.
Exactly.
He's the
stacking a grip.
man of video game
Hey,
wrestling.
look, I was on a video call to discuss PAX Wrestling and PAX West. The day before I left for E3, I had a multi-person video
Fuck
call.
are we on these calls?
I wasn't invited. I don't know.
When did we get cut out of the loop?
So my favorite
take
thing,
back
my
PAX
favorite
wrestling.
Money interest
Yeah,
got
it's the
involved.
money.
My favorite thing about
train
Aaron
trades.
organizing that is because he'll do stuff and he doesn't I don't know if he's oblivious or just doesn't
Yes,
care.
yes.
That,
Both. Yes.
that-
Yep, both, yes.
Whether it's not inviting people back from a previous show or things like that, where like people really want to be involved. And he's like, oh, I thought they wouldn't care. Like, no, we thought we were involved.
I will say, this is not going to have a major impact on okay.
A video call is pretty profesh.
Multi-person video call.
That's what happens when you get the Chicago folks
Oh,
involved. They want to do video calls and put together pitches
Great.
and all this other stuff. They're so businesslike out there with their card game. God.
Keep the business out of Paxomania, I say.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, with the ownership up in the air,
Keep PAX Wrestling weird.
Who owns PAX Wrestling?
We'll never know.
We will probably never.
Could have been resolved in that show.
Should have been. Was
Then
supposed
maybe
to
just
actually. Maybe.
the dumbest cliffhanger in the history of
Quite
video game
possible
wrestling.
that maybe we forgot to do a bit.
Whatever.
Well, there was supposed to be music at the end.
A
and
little
then
bit
the
of an
fucking
industry
guy didn't.
segue, though. Robert Coos, he's leaving.
Yeah, left by half.
And I don't
Breaking
know
news.
what that means for us.
We are not going to be allowed to do anything ever
he is
again.
like, he's the one that kept us in. Like, we
benefactor.
fucking, the smoke machine thing, fog machine, whatever.
We set up the fire alarm.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. Come back and do it again. And he's not going to be there anymore. I don't think other people would say that to us.
I shouldn't.
Well, if the folks at Reed that put together the show, I'm sure, that they love fire alarms and that sort of stuff, right?
It's their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I spent some time talking to some other folks about that stuff back at last PAX about how dumb all of this stuff
Our
runs.
lives are dumb.
Sometimes it feels like I mentioned. Sometimes it feels like we were running a rogue PAX within PAX. Of just like all of our panels have become this connected nightmare. There was a while there that
extended universe.
there was a while there.
The PAX Wrestling Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. There was a while there that we were like literally in Twitter conversations with Sir Mix-a-Lot, specifically to have him interrupt the harmonics panel.
Yeah.
It was just like, no, we probably need Sir Mix-a-Lot to come out there and have him put him on the glass.
Yeah.
Like we don't want him to do like
Not the hit. Not the hit. Yeah.
no, not the
even
hit.
jump on it?
No.
All right.
I love
Was that a
jump
hit?
on. Yes. No.
All right. My favorite thing about the group of people you've gathered for this segment is how much all of us turn on Alex on a dime whenever he says
Totally fair.
Shut up, Alex! Oh!
No, we're gonna have Sir Mix-a-Lot come out and do I checks my bank.
Yep.
And everyone will love it. Can we get the President of the United States? We'll put together a subset. We'll get him to come out. But then it's that whole.
He'll do the first cut is the deepest, and like all I want to do is have some fun.
Yeah.
All the great Civic Slot songs.
Exactly.
Shoko.
And then that whole conversation got weird in a way that it was agreed that we were going to stop talking to Sir Mix-a-Lot.
We stopped pranking the panel because it was costing so much money.
Yeah.
I was like, Dave Lang and I were like hemorrhaging cash to like rent cash boxes and make T-shirts and murder people that were getting in our way, and it was really expensive.
Yeah, no, I bet.
Hiring marching bands and we had we used to do production meetings. Like this is how off the rails harmonics got at some point. Is that no one in our team gave a shit about promoting the games of the show. All we cared about was like, well, what are we doing during the Giant Bomb panel? The best thing. Well, I don't want to give away an idea that we had in case we ever want to go back to it, but I'm not.
Which
allowed
one?
The panel panel on wheels.
Yep.
Yeah.
A panel within a panel.
That was someone mentioned that to me at some point. That is a great idea that you should still do, even having said it out loud.
Sure, great. put a table and folding table and some chairs on casters, and a sound system with a really long extension cable with 4 microphones on that. And just wheel it out in the middle of your show, and just start doing a different panel with a different sound system, and don't leave ever.
Yeah, no.
Until you leave.
Well, see,
we'll leave when you
drive me out.
Yeah. It's good that you've said this out loud now because the looming threat is always there.
The shoe will drop.
Yeah.
And what will we talk about though?
Doesn't
That's
matter.
not the
It literally doesn't matter.
What do you guys plan to talk about at the next PAX panel?
Talk about. That's.
I mean, if it's anything like PAX Mania, it'll be just competitive monologuing for an hour and a half.
Well, the video games don't work, so we have to do something on stage.
Right. Yeah.
See who can talk the longest.
Yikes.
Paxmania becomes a slam poetry contest.
Yeah.
Def comedy PAX Wrestling.
Yeah.
I would
Def Comedy Slam.
be way into that.
I mean, it's inching its way there.
Yeah,
It really,
you're right.
it's there.
And
it's there.
I've been saying for a while now that the video games are actually the worst part about that panel. So
There are people who disagree with you about that.
they're wrong.
Okay.
When was the last time we played a video game on that
I can't
panel?
believe they didn't
Yeah.
play the wrestling
I
game.
tuned in to see
I don't even
wrestling
think that
games.
guy was playing it right.
No, you're
Yeah.
You nailed it, buddy.
Sorry for not
Way to
having
peek
this.
behind the curtain.
Yeah, hot
this
takes.
this esports level fucking
Yeah.
WWE
I don't
no
care what Aaron
mercy.
Trice is saying on Twitter about PAX Wrestling. I care what the fans think. Why aren't they playing the wrestling game we brought and
Why
set
are they
up?
burying wrestling?
Yeah. We're throwing a lot of shade at Aaron. He doesn't. He works really hard on that. I don't know.
No,
why
he
we're-
does. He does.
Positive E3.
He
God
doesn't-
damn it, Jeff.
I love that boy.
Well, he's not at
Gary.
E3.
He's not E3.
Yeah,
And we're
you're
talking
right.
about PAX.
Yeah.
That could be negative
Negative
PAX.
facts.
Negative facts.
Negative facts.
Agree.
I like this
I
idea.
can't
This
wait
is
to
fun.
see the flip side of this.
Yeah.
The darkest timeline.
I just feel like that's actually day
I was gonna
3
say
of
we
E3.
all yeah,
Yeah.
that's base level.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Rest of the year. Oh man, you guys.
Yeah.
So
we survived.
this is day 1 of the show. We've got 2 more days to go. Teasdale, it sounds like you're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah, I'm fucking flying home tomorrow. So
Oh,
whatever.
fucking awesome.
That's
yeah.
great.
What if something goes wrong?
You guys have got it.
Yeah, you're right.
You guys can fix the bill.
That's
better
the
be
indifference I know.
I have to actually ship a game, so I can't hang around and fucking
Yeah.
There, that's
drink all day.
that's the right
Yeah.
that's the right way to answer that question, and not just like I'm gonna go home and just sit around my underwear.
But if you haven't checked out 100
that's
Foot Robot
game
Golf,
development.
like,
Yeah.
Yes,
go
please.
watch anything you can find on the internet of 100 Foot Robot Golf because it is bananas weird,
Yeah.
crazy,
It's fun.
in a great way.
Yeah.
And the game is also very fun.
Yep.
Please check out 100 Foot Robot Golf. Also, manofgamedev.com.
Well, let's focus on the game. The other thing,
asking a lot.
The other thing makes the money for your company.
As
but-
the person who's
It's like, it's like, oh, we're a multinational conglomerate. We have charity. And I'm like, right, but what about the oil and the mercenaries? Like, we don't talk about those things. Those are the dark things that make us the money.
Yeah. What does Adult Swim Games have at the show? Are you taking meetings for people that are want to show you drawings of butts, or how's
that's
this go?
mainly that. Mainly
Yeah.
that. Bring your butt photos, drawings. No, don't bring your butt photos. Oh, Jesus Christ!
You said it out loud.
I
Right?
said the shit out. Or said that
It's
forever.
what is at Sean Baptiste on Twitter? What is
Yep.
the send
Send those butt photos.
Send
them to Williams.
I was going to ask,
that's right.
did you get any butt chugging pitches?
I know a guy.
I'm pretty sure that's going to happen now. We have at Sony's booth we have Rain World and Headlander.
So good.
I think
Yeah,
actually
Headlander,
they're
yeah,
coming
of course,
by. And both have been awesome. Rain World's just adorable. Like, it's really, really incredible. And then over in Microsoft's booth, we have Rise and Shine, which is the best game I can only make it about 3 minutes into before I'm just dead. Like, I can't, it's too hard for me, but it's amazing. It's like really, really beautiful by some Spanish developers. So very excited about it.
And Pope, are you like? Do you have to stand near For Honor for
So-
the show?
so
or you,
Eric
what do you,
Pope's For Honor.
Eric Pope's
That's
For
the
Honor?
thing with like being at a company with resources. I'm not working a booth for the first time in my E3 life.
It's great, right?
It's amazing. So like I'm hanging out with community people. I took them to medieval times tonight. Like,
What?
Yeah.
What's it? You didn't tell us to
That's where see where I'm bringing the dumb ideas.
Yep. I've never been more angry at you than I am right now.
We could have voted for different nights.
Also, Portillo's is like right across the street from
That's
medieval
true.
times.
This is
You
unacceptable.
fucked
We
up.
can go back to
unacceptable.
Portillo's right now. They're probably
have a
not
car?
open. No.
Well, so don't say things
It's
you
in
can't take
Canada.
back.
I have my car.
But yeah, I don't have to work a booth, and it's amazing. So I get to just do community stuff. And
Which is
medieval
the thing they
times.
hired you to do.
Right.
Crazy.
So that was what I was getting at with the resources. Like at Harmonix, all of us did so many different jobs, which was cool. You get a lot of view into.
You learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Crash course.
But
Don't
for
get
kind
bored.
of I just have to focus on community now, which is awesome, and they have the resources to do a lot of cool things. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah. And then Drake, I just always assume that you're in 9,000 meetings. Shooting business guns.
Yeah,
doing
making up
screaming.
terms. I got to see Injustice 2 today.
Yeah, cool.
It was cool.
I'm checking that out in the morning.
It's a pretty awesome presentation.
Yeah.
Superman does some really intense shit.
I saw that I caught like a couple minutes of like GameSpot's like stage demo when I was in their room or whatever. So it's just it's full screen of the gameplay, so it was fine. And watched a little bit of that. It wasn't Danny O'Dwyer. I have to see him.
I was gonna say, don't you want to look at that face? That's
No,
a
no,
whole.
it's his shoes. It's his shoes. They're filthy.
They're gross.
Disgusting. And yeah, that thing looked pretty cool.
Yeah, so yesterday I got to watch the press conferences. I had lunch with some people, and then I went to our show, and I was there for. We did the press conference from like 6 to whatever 7:30 or so, and then we had a VR event afterwards actually where we showed 54 stations of virtual reality, and Jeff Keighley was doing his show in the middle of that, and I couldn't hear what he was saying, but it was like there was a show happening silently, like a haunted orchestra in the middle of the whole thing.
No speakers for the people
there. Were
there.
some, but I was upstairs, so it's just like
yeah.
Jeff Keighley sitting in the giant circle under a giant PlayStation thing, just talking to himself, from what I could tell.
Look at his BlackBerry.
Yeah. So that was cool, and then today I mostly was just in meetings and saw Injustice 2. Warner Brothers was like, hey, while we're here for this meeting, do you want to see Injustice 2? And I was like, yes, a video game. I'd love to see a video game. That would be really nice.
It's only E3. It'd be great to see a video game.
I see one video game today. And then I went and had Chinese food, and then I came here, dropped off giant Jenga.
Right.
And then I went and had Chinese food, and then I came back.
Great.
And the rest of the week I'm just in meetings with people who you never hear of, like me, as I drift like Marty McFly's family on that photo.
All the people in the shadows that make the video games happen.
As my identity, as I Jason Bourne my identity out of existence.
Master. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm here hanging out. And then Alex is showing Rock Band Unplugged in our booth.
It's
going to be really great.
PSP, it's a very exciting platform.
PSP excited about it.
I got a Rock Band PSP demo on my living room floor.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Which I wasn't supposed to get.
Nope.
Yep.
But whatever. Any press you do at that point.
Right, no, yeah.
Please show this game to anyone who will listen.
Someone actually pay money for this thing. Don't
Alex,
just pirate it. Oh, God.
I want to give you a chance to really level up in this organization. I want to make you the lead on a game. That sounds great. I'm really excited about that. You're doing Rock Band Unplugged with the PSP. What happened? What did I do? Yeah,
I'd like to think I took that with good humor.
You did?
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
After the first meeting, you ran with it. You did a great job. The first meeting, you seemed reticent about it, but which is completely fair.
Yeah.
I think we have like multiple. One Drew Scanlon worked on a little bit of that game.
Yeah, that unites the giant Rock Band Unplugged brings the giant bomb staff and harmonics together.
Yeah.
In a way that's hard to explain.
And then Alex, what are you doing for the rest of the show? What's other than Rock Band Unplugged? You just getting around, seeing some games? What's
I think I'm going to go see some video games. I might actually talk about them on this show here.
What?
This show. Right here.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, maybe we'll see if that happens tomorrow.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah,
I
because
would suggest you guys explore the part of the South Hall that you could tell they rushed to fill in.
Oh, you mean the geodesic dome? Because where Action used to be?
Right? It's Secret Kensha.
Yeah, it's
they
super
have
weird.
my Kensha pick of 2016 is this VR controller that's a wheel you put underneath your feet, and
so like a bad Wii balance board.
Like a lazy Susan, essentially. But you put your feet on it.
And then you put a thing on so you can't see.
The whole thing is you're controlling, I think you're controlling rotation with it, which is like a terrible thing to do with VR.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like a good idea.
Joining ever? Yeah. I like to blindfold myself and then spin around really fast.
So you can find that, I believe it's right next to two different companies that make prepaid cards for retailers. So if you can find that.
And there's just a random band playing over there.
Yes, there is. And it's not the 2K band, it's a different band.
There's also a random orchestra just set up, like a 7-person orchestra just outside the convention center, unaffiliated, just playing this morning. And I was like, it's just orchestras everywhere I go this
there's another random orchestra at this press conference that I watched last night. It was so bizarre. Like, why was it even there?
LA has the most unemployed philharmonics anywhere in the country. They're just out there busting.
Bands. It's a new game we're making where bands and orchestras roam the streets. You have to fight your way to the convention center every morning.
I would totally. I would play that game. Yeah, Band Hero. Yeah, it's crazy. Like these guys went and saw The Legend of Zelda, and then sat down to record some audio about it. And literally recorded audio on the show floor, and it was fine.
It wasn't loud, crowded, any of it.
That's scary.
You can play a game of soccer in the back area. It's like football, but for non-Americans.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, okay. So I know it is football. So or sometimes association football.
Can you get us in to see For Honor? Can we come see you? Are you at the booth at all? Or you just
I will be on Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday I'll be
I'll
hanging
play that
out.
game. That game's super fun.
Yeah, Austin came back from the Monday night event saying that it was pretty cool. So I kind of want to.
It's a hard game to explain in like 2 sentences, but playing it is like legitimately kind of.
I feel like when
addictive.
you look at it and see the UI, you go like, oh, okay, I have to match this. Okay, this is the left, right, or up.
It's a match 3 game.
I get it. I get
it's
it.
a match 3 game. It's a match 3 match game.
Yeah. It's Infinity Blade with a controller. I get it.
Yeah. Some of the elements.
Yeah. So that's going to do it for us here tonight. Thanks you guys for coming and hanging out.
Thanks.
It's a late shift. Yeah. Nice.
Always.
Yeah.
Anytime.
We're going to take off for the night. We'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow. Are we 5 p.m. tomorrow?
No.
No? We're
No.
6?
So first segment
going on right now?
around 6:30.
First segment around 6:30.
Rolling into the
not
post-show
6.
production meeting.
Not 6.
Okay, so we're starting a half hour later.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we're doing there's a guest, and then we're doing our editor check-in.
This was
and
the
then
year
we're
that I
doing more
decided
guests.
that I would just show up and sit here.
It's not true. People are yelling.
The opposite of what we're doing.
You
Am I
fucked up,
right?
Alex.
It's 5?
Yeah, way to go.
We've turned Giant Bomb against you.
having our special guest.
Editor check-in first. What time are we? What time will we be on the internet?
5.
That's not what I had written
5.
down.
5.
All right.
So I'm just gonna let you know I'll be streaming at 4 o'clock from GiantKnife.com, which Steve Lynn bought while we were on the air. So we'll just be doing a
Great.
competitive stream on that side of the room.
Oh my God.
Cool.
Loudly.
Totally.
Just
Come by and
turn
do
one of
it.
the
Come by and do
cameras
it.
around. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
No, I have zero problems with everything you're saying.
GiantKnife.com. Tune in now.
Yeah. No.
That's
CBS
amazing.
Legal may eventually get involved in something like that.
As John
but-
Riccatello said about harmonics, it was like catching a falling
falling
knife.
knife,
He
yeah.
said that on the record. Not a nice thing to say.
No, it's terrible.
What a great way to close out the show.
All right.
He said it.
E3 2016 is like catching a falling knife. We'll see you tomorrow.
That's true.
At 5 p.m.,
Yeah.
we will talk about some video games. I think I'm going to see some Injustice and some other Warner stuff, and then some. I don't know. I have appointments. I'm going to go see some video games. We're all going to see some video games. We'll come back and talk about them, and then we'll bring in some guests to talk to them or about whatever. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for sticking it out. See you tomorrow.